This video is an interview I did with one of our SoloQ members, Eashan. Now, Eashan was able to get from Gold 2 to Master Tier in just over a year, joining the SoloQ program in August of last year, 2020, as a Gold 2 player, and then reaching Master Tier just last week in October 2021. Now, Eashan is what I'll call a bit more of a special case. Thinking about other players that, maybe can have competitive backgrounds and they have played other MOBAs and they just transition to League and they climb up really quickly. Eashan was hard stuck, quotes, for 6 seasons in Gold. So he's a very much true Gold player. And he also has a 9-to-5 job. So he also had a full-time job and was only managed to play 3 games a day. So this video he runs us through his exact process, the way he did it, talking about everything from schedule, his review process, some narratives, some things he had to break down to help him climb the ladder. These are very common narratives in the League of Legends community space that he sort of had to work through himself. He talks about how he managed to play with high intensity, talking about the importance of champion mastery, what champion he used to climb, and how he thought about getting better at that champion to a Master Tier and beyond level. So I thought this video overall will be very helpful for people, Gold, Platinum, the likes, thinking about this is what Eashan did to climb these ranks. Again, it's not going to be, everyone's not going to have the exact same journey. This is what he did. He even breaks down as well the specific ranks. So like Gold 2 to Platinum, this is what he focused on. Platinum 4 to Diamond, this is what he focused on. And then D2 to Master Tier. So even breaking down the specific things that helped for him. The other thing as well, I think this might be very valuable to you guys, is that especially high elo players in general, myself, I mean, I hit Challenger in Season 3, so I've never really been through that struggle of climbing for Gold. I sort of not completely out of touch. Like I obviously work with a lot of Gold clients, but I think it's really good to hear it from someone who did the journey themselves very recently as well in the current state of the game. His journey through the ranks, climbing all the way to the top 0.2% of the player base. Hope this is helpful, guys. Let me know in the comments below and enjoy. This is me going back in the edit. I forgot to mention this video is split into 2 parts. The first part was a first conversation we had, and then the next day he wrote out some reflections from that interview we had, and then way more specific things about, he felt like it was a bit too much general advice in our first interview. Again, it'll be very, very still helpful. There will be timestamps specific for that first interview, but that second one will just be a block and you'll just have to navigate that one yourself. That's another hour or so. So it's sort of like split into like an hour and a half and then another hour going into more specific, talking about his schedule and all more detailed stuff. So that's it for me. Let's jump into the video. All right, welcome everyone to I guess, interview with Eashan here, who, for those in SoloQ, probably really familiar with Eashan. He's been in the program since August of 2020, so it's been a good 12, 14 months, I guess, over a year. Yep. And I guess Eashan's sort of been in all the sort of the variations of SoloQ. You've seen many members come in, so in terms of like the SoloQ program, I mean, you've seen it all, right? And you've obviously been around, you've watched hundreds of reviews for all SoloQ. Yep. I've obviously reviewed with you probably hundreds of games, maybe not 100, maybe 50 games, maybe.
50 games. I think we're on there, yeah. That makes sense to me.
And where I wanted to talk to Eashan was, so Eashan has recently hit Master Tier. On NA, play on the NA server, IGN Splasher Crimson. And Eashan's a really interesting case because Eashan joined SoloQ. You joined SoloQ when you were Gold 2?
Gold 2, yep.
And that was, again, in August of last year. And I want to sort of bring up your graph here, talking about, sort of your journey. I guess for this conversation, I really want to get into, like, what your journey was like, all the invisible narratives you sort of had to break down. Mm-hmm. We're going to start off with, like, your gaming background. Because the thing about you, Eashan, is that you... let's get it up here. Looking at your tier graph, you started as basically, when you joined SoloQ, you were like that season 9, season 10, you were like a Gold player for many, many seasons. You did hit plat at season 6, but I guess maybe you could sort of say that's still Gold around, like,
yeah, I mean, I hit plat 5-0 LP. So, yeah.
There you go. So, yeah, that's where I want to start with you, Eashan, is like talking about, like, you've been playing League for a long time. And I guess my first question is how did you view League? Did you have like an improvement mindset to the game when you were in these seasons? Still season 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I guess we can start there, Eashan. That's what I sort of want to get to. Like, what was your? Did you play for fun? Did you play with friends? What was your thought process then?
Yeah, so I think like just like I guess a history of like when I started playing League. I started playing at the end of season 2, beginning of season 3. I think that's when Quinn and Valor got released. That's when I started playing, and they had they would have the splash screens where you'd have like the champion, like when you logged in, they'd have like little animations and the music with the champion. But I started playing when Quinn and Valor was released because I had a lot of friends who played the game. Um, I didn't take it seriously at all. Season 3. Uh, Season 4 is when I started playing ranked, but it wasn't serious as well. I was like a Lucian one trick. I played a ton of AD carry. Um, Season 5, I became a
Was this
mid.
all ranked? Is this like, did you play a lot of ranked or mainly normal games? Like, what was your?
It's like a mix. I mean, I never took ranked seriously. Like I played ranked, but it wasn't like, oh, this is ranked. I just played ranked and norms just for fun. And so that was basically my mindset. I think around season 6, I did start to take the game a little bit seriously. Like I wanted to climb, but I didn't have an improvement mindset. Like I would watch tons of montages, and I would try to play stuff like Lee Sin, Katarina, and I would try and just try and pull off like all my reviews. Like I would look at my games like while I'm playing them, and I'd be like, oh, I missed this like flash Q R insec, and that's why I lost the game. And so, you know, I wanted to climb, but I didn't really have an improvement mindset. Um, I
It was
didn't really
about
have the
kills.
tools.
You thought about winning games in terms of kills. Like, did you? And it was like mechanics max
It was
and
all mechanics. It was all just off montages. I just watched
yeah.
montages. I watched people get like 30 kills a game, and I was like, that's what I have to do to win. And so that's what I tried doing. And I mean, it worked to to gold, I guess. But after that, I just hit a brick wall. And so I kept playing like kind of semi casually for about 6 years, 7 years. But at a point, I think around then I graduated college, around season 10. And so I was like, if I really want to spend time playing this game, I should, I should seriously try and improve, and I should find people who know how to do that, which is why I joined SoloQ. But yeah, that's my history.
So season 10 was when you're like, I want to actually get good at the game. That was like sort of your switch because you finished your studies, so college, and
That's
then you
right.
had more time. You had more free time. You just wanted to play League.
Yeah, I mean, I started working in September full time, but I wanted something that I could put time into, and I can try and work to hit some sort of goal, because that was missing in my life at the time. Work is there. Work is like important, but it's also it's not like as fun as trying to achieve a goal. So that's what I would say.
And what was your initial goal when you were like, okay, I want to get good at the game? What were you thinking? What's your initial goal?
All right, so this is funny, but when I first started playing the game in August, or when I first joined Saltu in August of 2020, my goal, I seriously thought that by the end of the year I could hit challenger, um, because I had a challenger coach. I had um, all I had to do was just do everything that Nathan told me to, and I could hit challenger. And obviously that was a completely ridiculous goal. I think by the time December hit, so the end of the year, I barely peaked Platinum 1. And it took me until March of 2021 to really hit Diamond 4 for the first time, which is like over 1K LP away from Challenger. So I had completely absurd expectations of the game. And yeah, that's pretty much what it was.
So talking a bit more about your specific journey. So yeah, this is obviously your actual OPGG now.
Uh-huh.
So you finished last season, Platinum 2, Platinum 1,
Platinum 2.
Platinum 2, yep. And
Yep.
then this season, obviously back to Plat 2. So you basically, when the season reset, you're basically the same rank and you just slowly climbed all the way to Master TR that you're at now, right?
Yep.
So the interesting thing looking at your graph, and sometimes I see other people's graphs, and you've always just been a steady climb, steady improvement, right?
Yep.
And when I was sort of looking at, and preparing for this, I was sort of like, did Eashan ever sort of hit periods where like he, hard tilting down ranks or was just felt like really stuck or felt like this certain rank was impossible?
Yeah. I I definitely did not have a steady climb, although it might seem that way. I think, and we can get into this a little bit later, but I think one of the strengths that I definitely had was I was a very consistent player. Like I never had those like 20 game blocks where I was just tilt queuing off the face of the earth. You know, I always had um, 3 blocks a day, or like 3 games a day. No matter how much I win or lose, you know, I end the day on a good block. Uh, and I tried to consistently improve. And so I think, you know, having a process like that made it very difficult to jump rank very quickly, either up or down. And so my climb was pretty consistent. But I had a lot of periods where I was struggling. I think especially the Platinum 2 to Platinum 1. You can see from my tier graph, like Platinum 2 to Platinum 1, I struggled there for like 4, 5, 6 months.
Yeah.
That was a really big block for me. And then the other one was Diamond 2, Diamond 1. That block was probably the most brutal. Like, I hit Diamond 2 for the first time in May. And then, you know, I hit Diamond 1, and then I dropped all the way back down to Diamond 4. And that happened like 2 or 3 times where I was just dropping, like I was getting to Diamond 1, dropping all the way back to Diamond 4, then getting back to Diamond 1, and then dropping down to Diamond 4. And I think it took me a few of those cycles before I was finally able to break out. But
So this will guess would have looked a bit more like this. Like you like got these and then you went down to D4 and then back down to D4 here.
D4, D3,
D4. Yeah. It's sort of just like the way it reset the month. You just happen to be back up to where you've sort of peaked. Okay. Yeah.
Yep. So this was definitely the most brutal bracket by far for me.
So when you first got to D4, you sort of just powered through it a bit. Like we used how long there? How much? Because people always say D4 is like the Elo hell. Was that what you experienced when you got there?
No, absolutely not. And I think the reason that people say that Diamond 4 is an Elo hell, I think a lot of players hit Diamond 4. This is just my speculation, but I think a lot of players hit Diamond 4, you know, playing like hundreds of games. They don't really think about, you know, fundamentals. They don't think about the process. They don't have coaches or anything. So they just, you know, maybe one player is like a one trick who has really good mechanics and they hit Diamond 4 that way, or, you know, they have very specific play styles, or, you know, they maybe they have a duo partner or something. And I think once you hit Diamond 4 and you want to climb out of Diamond 4, you really need to start having good fundamentals of the game. But I think working with you and like working on fundamentals was something we were already doing since day one.
So we started here. So you're saying that because you started working on fundamentals, you know, when you're gold 2, again, you joined SoloQ around here, you felt like you were building solid foundations, which allowed you to climb through Diamond much easier. Is that sort of your
Diamond 4 and Diamond 3,
4?
Actually, I think those ranks were not very difficult. I really started to hit difficulty like Platinum 1, Platinum 2, and Diamond 2, Diamond 1. Those were the worst ranks for me by far.
Got it. All right, so I guess we can sort of jump into the first question I want to ask you, Eashan, is like, so your perception of high elo players, like, so you're just sitting there, you know, Eashan's climbing through the ranks, you know, gold 1, gold 2, you know, platinum, and then did you feel like people were getting better, or did you feel it was more like you were getting better, so you deserved the rank you were in? Like, as you sort of climb, and I guess you're master tier now, I mean, what do you think, like, what's your perception of these type of players that you had before?
I think it comes in cycles. Like, whenever I hit a new rank, or whenever anyone hits a new rank, I think the way it feels is like, you know, you're in the promised land. You know, like I hit Diamond 4 for the first time. Like, oh my god, like there's all these Diamond Fair players. You see them, you know, they have like crazy macro, crazy micro. Like, I remember when I hit Diamond 4 for the first time, and I was like, you know, I full cleared on Evelyn. I got to my first crab, and then my bot lane literally roamed up and ganked mid. Like my bot shoved their wave in, roamed up and ganked mid. Like, I never seen that before.
Seen that,
like,
yeah.
Oh my god, these players are.
This is Diamond. Welcome to Diamond, man. We're roaming mid, yeah.
Like my 80 carry is roaming at level 4, but then, you know, after a while, like when you start playing, you know, like 10, 15 games, you start to realize that, you know, these people are making the same exact mistakes that you've seen since day one. They've been, you know, someone's gonna overstay on a wave, or someone's going to take a dragon that they have no right taking, and, you know, the mistakes are less for sure, but they're still making mistakes. And I think that's something that you don't really realize until you get to the elo. That, like, I mean, for me now, like, I think Challenger is like insane, and I think those players are crazy. But I'm sure that when I hit like, you know, 700, 800 LP, I'll start to see them making mistakes as well in my own games. So I think it comes in cycles.
So let's say, obviously when you thought you got the coaching and stuff, you said, oh, I think I can make it a challenger in like, you know, one season super easily, right?
Yeah.
Like, let's say people like looking for you, and obviously you said that you thought that's a real, like, ridiculous expectation you had at the time. What would you say to someone? Let's say not challenger. Let's say someone who wants to do your exact climbing. Someone say who wants to go from gold to master, right? So let's say they're an excited gold two player,
Uh-huh.
and they said, "I want to get to master in through a period of like one season." What would you say to that person?
It might sound kind of harsh, but honestly, I would tell them that they're setting themselves up for failure. And I think the reason I say that is, as a gold player, and like I say that as someone who made like similar kinds of claims. I'm not saying that you can't hit masters in one season or even like 3 months, 4 months, like um, whatever time limit. But I think for someone to make that claim without knowing what it even entails to go from gold to masters, like as a gold player, you don't even know what the landscape is. You don't even know what fundamentals you're missing, what's out there, and so it's impossible for you to really be able to say, I'm going to get there in one season, I'm going to get there in 2 seasons, I'm going to get there in 3 months, when you don't even know what it entails. And so if you like what if it's going to take you like a season and 2 months, right? Like after a season, you don't hit master, you don't hit goal, you don't hit your goal. Um, like what's going to happen then? And so I think more than having a time limit or like a time constraint for your goal, I think it's important to just have the framework in place. Like you can have a goal which is like I want to hit masters, but uh, like instead of time constraining that and saying that I want to hit it in 1 year, I want to hit it in one season, just have the process and have the framework in place to get to that goal, and you'll get it eventually. It might take you 3 years, it might take you 3 months, but I think that's a better way to approach it.
How quickly did you realize that getting to challenger? Actually, like, what point in the journey were you like, "This is ridiculous. I'm not going to get that"?
When
Was it,
so I Yeah, I mean, you can see it pretty clearly on my graph. Like once I hit platinum two, like I I I didn't have too much trouble like going from gold to like platinum four, platinum three. I think
when
that
you
was
joined
pretty good
Saltu, you thought that was pretty easy? Yeah.
because I mean it was just a bunch of fundamentals that I was missing. So like fixing those gave me a lot of rank. But once I hit platinum two and I was there for like 3 months, then I realized that like yeah, this is not going to happen at all.
So how did you think? So what did it shift to? Was it like now just Diamond Four is my goal? Like, did it shift, or were you just still very process oriented? You're like, I'm just going to try and be the best player I can be.
It's interesting because I kind of I always had that goal, and I still have that goal in the back of my mind if I want to hit challenger, but I wasn't like too upset about it, if that makes sense. And I think the reason is like when I hit platinum four, um, it was just like there's something so exciting about it. Like posting the screenshot in the Saltu chat, and like same when I hit diamond four, like uh, there's so much like hardship associated with it. There's so much like work and shit that I had to go through to get to those ranks, and being able to post that screenshot and say like I hit platinum four, I hit diamond four, that was just so much more fun to me that I didn't really care too much about that goal of hitting challenger, because there's like all these other smaller goals in the way that are also like really fun to hit. So I actually didn't mind that much.
So it sounds like you're definitely more focused. You're like, it sounds like you have challenger as like your overarching goal. It still is today, but you're
Mhm.
sort of like realistic around like the steps. You know the steps to be taken because obviously you have the rest of the Soul 2 community. Obviously, my coaching, other resources
Yeah.
out there. Is that why you sort of like know what's possible? So it's like, well, I'm not there yet, and then I'm just gonna just keep playing and keep practicing. Is that sort of your mindset, Eashan?
Yeah, and I mean, I don't even think like for me, I feel like hitting diamond or hitting master is as fun as hitting challenger. Like hitting every goal is like as exciting to me because they all mean like pretty much the same thing. Like I've gotten through this much shit to get to this rank, and then I'm gonna get through this much shit to get to the next rank. So um I think hitting challenger is gonna feel the same as hitting grandmaster, as hitting master, as hitting diamond for me.
All right, so let's go. Let's dive more into the process and like the journey and how you actually got there. So, in terms of champion, you played Eve.
Even
You
Olaf, a little bit of Olaf.
Eve enough. Yep. So that's how you found my YouTube channel, right? Through my Olaf guide.
That's right.
And then why'd you choose? Why'd you switch to Eve out of curiosity? Is it because I released the Eve guide, or?
Yeah, that's literally the
Oh, that's
only reason.
it.
You
Yeah.
I literally just like we started with Olaf because I saw the Olaf guide, and I
Yep.
played a ton of Olaf, and then I hit platinum four, so I wanted to learn a new champion, and then
Yep.
you dropped the Evelyn guide at the same time, so I was like, fuck it, I'm gonna play Evelyn. That's literally the only reason. There's no other reason to it. I didn't have any interest in a champion, nothing. Like it was just like there's a
Yeah.
2 hour guide, might as well. That's the only
It's like
reason.
this. This is might be helpful because it's helpful for your Olaf, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
Because you didn't join Saltu, you played, so you climbed with the Olaf guide to Gold 2 from what? Or
It was like gold 4 or something. I think
got
it
it.
wasn't too much, but I just literally I every game I did the full clear into crab into another full clear into dragon, and it gave me 200 LP, so it worked
Yeah.
pretty well.
Yeah, I always say that that guide, I've had the most results from especially lower elo players following that guide because it was such a beautiful game plan that you could do every game. You know, and sort of like if statements. It's like if happens here, concede crab. If you know, so it was really simple. And
It's
there's not
so
really many
simple.
champs that it's like that. This is the uniqueness of the jungle position. So, you know, it's like you could never say that for mid lane or anything. It's like push this wave. It's like, well, what happens if you get level 2 ganks? You know, it's not going to happen. Like I guess the most that could happen to you is get level 3 invaded as Olaf, but that probably wasn't happening to you much in gold, was it?
Yeah,
And
you
silver and
literally can't
stuff.
mess it up. It's really
Yeah.
straightforward. Yeah.
All right, so invisible narratives, Eashan. We talk a lot about that with Curtis on the Broken by Concept podcast. What were some huge mental blocks, barriers, some things you thought about the game, maybe things you heard about in the community that you sort of needed to break down? Like, what was the bullshit you heard, Eashan, that you needed to really break down or you struggled with?
There's a lot. There's a lot for sure. And I'm sure I still have more like right now
Of
that I
course, I think
don't
we
even
all do. Yeah,
know about. But just to point out a few that I think were especially interesting. Um, one of the things that I think gets brought up a lot is this idea, like the notorious like scaling versus early game champion mindset. And I've played Olaf and I've played Evelyn, so I've been on both sides of this coin. But the way this invisible narrative works is if you're playing an early game champion, if you're playing like Olaf or Rek'Sai or Jarvan, and you don't win the game in the first 15 minutes, then the game's over. Like that's like the mindset that you have, right? And then if you're playing something like Evelyn or Karthus, or you're playing one of these scaling champions, you can't do anything in the early game. You just have to keep clearing, and you have to wait for your item spikes and your experience spikes before you can do anything. Um, and obviously, what I learned is like this is not the case at all. Like
you can do things early game as Eve. Was this more of like an Eve thing? Was this
and
more when
even
you were
an
playing
Olaf
Eve?
thing, because like on Olaf, right? Like there might be games where you get double scuttle. There might be games where like you don't have like you have to full clear 3 times and you can't get the first dragon, right? Um, but it's about like on a scaling champion, it's about looking for opportunities early. Like if the opportunity presents itself, you take it. And on a champion like Olaf, sometimes you have to slow down and you have to accept that you can't get this dragon, you can't make a play, you just have to full clear and wait for a better opportunity. And I think it's like on both sides of the coin, if that makes sense.
Okay, so would you say where did you really have that on your journey? So again, look at your tier graphs. Like when you broke that down, was it like instant climbing, or you sort of had to chip away at that a long time? How did that sort of work?
um Definitely chip away for a while. Like once you realize, like on Evelyn for example, once you realize that you can take opportunities in the early game and you don't have to just AFK clear, um, there's a lot of inting that's associated with it, right? You're like, oh, can I really make this play? Like maybe I can invade the Zac on his blue, and then you get killed because you didn't think about mid priority or something. And so I think it's a process of just um, knowing you can do something and then trying until you figure out the right way to do it. So I mean, I think I think it's something I'm still working on to this day. Knowing when can I apply pressure and when do I have to just sit and scale. So I mean, I think it's something that I'm still trying to break out of, honestly, but it's something that's been there for a while.
All right, and so you said that was your a major one. Thinking
Mhm.
about again, like I can actually do things as Eve early game if the opportunity presents itself.
That's right. That's right.
What are some other ones you had that you can think of?
Another big one is like obsessing over optimizing builds, optimizing runes.
Hmm.
Trying to pick the perfect champion for champion select. Like I'm just thinking, is Olaf better here? Evelyn, Rek'Sai, whatever. Looking at teammates OPGGs and dodging. Um, and I think this one's especially hard to break out of because these things do matter. Like I can't just say, like having the best build doesn't matter, having the best runes don't matter. But I think it's a matter of focusing on the most important things, like the 20% of like things that will give you the 80% of results. Why should I spend so much time trying to min max my build when I can spend the same amount of time learning how to track the enemy jungler and having this like big fundamental baseline for myself that will give me so much more results? And so I think that's what really helped me shift my perspective there. Um, realizing where should I be spending my time most efficiently.
So thinking about this might be hard for you to think about, but when did you get that narrative?
I think that was that was pretty uh, early on when I was joining Saltu, because I think that's the advice that you get pretty much everywhere. If you're if you're on like Summoner School, for example, on Reddit, or if you're going on YouTube, if you even ask people for advice, usually the advice they're going to give you is the advice that's easiest for them to, um, look at, which is your own PGG, right? They'll look at your items, they'll look at your runes, they'll um, look at your team comps, and that's what they'll give you advice on. You shouldn't have built this item, you shouldn't have had these runes, and so that's the kind of stuff you end up focusing on. Um, when
It's like the sexy stuff, isn't it? And why I ask that is what I find. I think it's actually just a natural progression of if you're playing
Mhm.
League, like that's just what you're gravitated towards. Because as you said, everything, all the community is saying, build this, bad build. You have like top content creators saying pro players are building incorrectly.
Yeah, the collector versus LDR, that's a huge example. Like who
Mm,
cares, man? Like I want to say,
mm.
like, who cares? Like they did all this math. They're making all these graphs on Reddit and stuff about whether you should take collector or LDR based on how much armor. I'm just like, dude, fuck it, just take collector. It doesn't matter.
Take
But
like to just figure out how to play with it and have we focus on our actual
yeah,
gameplay.
exactly. Like exactly. Like I mean, obviously these things matter at like the highest levels of play. But it's
Yeah.
whatever.
Well, again, this is for you, your journey, your climb. So you found that when you stopped focusing about that, you just started having more results because you started thinking about the things that actually got results.
That's right. That's absolutely right.
Um, More invisible narratives, Eashan. Anything else you can think of?
Um, Another one. What do you call it? Unwinnable games, losers queue. That's
Yes.
that was a big one throughout. Like if you want to think about time frame, that was Platinum 2, Platinum 1. When I first started getting really hard stuck in Platinum 2, I had this invisible narrative, and I know we talk about the 30-30-40 rule, right? Which is like, 30% of games are unwinnable, 30% of games are
Free
unlosable, and
wins.
40%, yeah,
Yeah. And
and
then
40%
40% are
are
in your control.
in your control, right? Um, which I think is like a good mindset to have if you get really upset over your losses or upset over your wins. But I think I had a really toxic relationship with that mindset, and I would use that to kind of deflect blame and responsibility for myself. Um, if I do two full clears on Evelyn and my team's died like 5 times to like a Nunu or something, then I'm like, oh fuck it, like the game's over. There's nothing I can do. And then I kind of just have this like give up mindset inside of my games, and I finally broke out of this mindset when I hit, I think, Diamond 2, Diamond 1, and I started playing games on like a Smurf account in Platinum 4. And what I realized is like all those games that I thought were so unlosable, or all those games I thought were so unwinnable, like I was winning very easily. Like a game, like even if Nunu like killed all my lanes like once before I finished my full clear, I could still carry the game because I had better fundamentals. I could find picks in the mid to late game. I could get myself ahead and I could carry the game that way. And so there probably are unwinnable games, but there's so many accounts of like players like Canyon who can get to the top of the ladder with like a 70% win rate. And so, I mean, I just think people focus on the wrong things. Like I think these things don't matter. You can win. You can always do better in your games. You can always improve.
Yeah, I think that's a great one. And that's obviously a huge topic. I'm just in losers queue. My teammates are dragging me down, all this sort of stuff. And I mean, again, it's very easy, especially I guess like when you're on a loss streak to
Yeah,
think, okay, maybe there is an element of that. But your sort of view is like it's just pointless to think about anyway. Like,
yeah. I mean, it's definitely frustrating, and I definitely get those feelings sometimes. Like even in
you're not
my,
like a monkey, Sean. You're just like, I'm just like, I'm just a process 3 game
I
blocks,
wish,
like,
I
you
wish.
know?
No, I mean, I definitely get those feelings nowadays as well. If I get a 3 or 4, like there's like emotional feelings you get. Like you lose 3 games in a row, you lose like 2 blocks in a row, and you're like, damn, like I'm just getting terrible teammates, right? But I mean, I think it's just the perspective, right? Because that's exactly how I felt when I was in Platinum 1. But now as a Diamond player, if I'm to go back to the Platinum 1 games and play the exact same games, I guarantee I could win like 80% of those games, even though I thought they were unwinnable at the time. And so I think about it the same way. Like if a challenger player was to come into my games right now, like the 6 games that I just lost in a row, which I say are because of my teammates or say because of losers queue, he could probably win like 3 or 4 or 5 of these games himself, like with no problem. And so I think that's kind of the mindset shift that I've had that helped me reason with that.
Any others you can think of? Or those that you think are the major ones, Ishan?
there's a lot I could keep going if you
Keep
wanted me
going,
to.
Eashan. Let's keep going. We love visible narratives because people want to relate. It's like I think people want to be like,
Yeah.
okay, what are some things we tell ourselves that's dragging us back? Because again, there's so many in League of Legends. There's I've heard it all. I've absolutely heard it all. So, I want to get your experience, Eashan, and this obviously helps me become a better coach as well because it's like this is the narrative. This is why you think this way. All right, let's break it down.
Yeah. I think another big one. This happened when I first hit Diamond Four. Was I'm not good enough to be this rank. There's like this imposter syndrome, or there's this confidence issue, um, and I think especially I think this is especially as an Evelyn one trick because um, now that I'm playing with like a lot of streamers and stuff, whenever I go to see like someone stream after the game, they're always like, "Oh damn, Evelyn one trick, like playing boosted champion, like abusing like invisibility mechanics." And when I first hit Diamond Four, that's like all the stuff that was fed to me that like as an Evelyn player, you're just abusing your champion. You're not actually good at the jungle. You're not actually a fundamental player. And I think when I hit Diamond Four, I had this mentality that, um, you know, that's what I really am. Like I'm just really good at Evelyn. I'm just a one trick. Um, I don't understand the game fundamentally, and so I don't deserve to be here. Um, and I think, I had a period of time when I first hit Diamond Four where there's like 2 or 3 weeks I was just playing on a Smurf, and I was trying to play stuff like Rek'Sai and Shinzao and Lee
Did you try
Sin.
to break that? You didn't. You were like, yeah, I can do this, guys. Is that sort of like the
Yeah,
mindset
yeah.
that you had?
I was like, no, I'm not. And like, I was losing like half my games too. Like, it was a complete disaster, and like my confidence was just getting worse because I was losing. I think you remember this. Like, I was losing games in like Platinum Four, and I was trying to bring those like
I
my
remember
Rex.
when you were playing Rek'Sai. We reviewed some Rek'Sai games. Yeah,
Like Platinum
yeah.
Four is like complete mess, and like, I mean, it's not that like I couldn't learn how to play Rek'Sai and improve, right? But some some of the people in Saltu, they told me, like just play on your main account, just like play Rex on your main account, um, and that's what I did, and I played like perfectly fine. And I think, you know, like I think everyone hits a rank for a reason. Like you hit Diamond, like I hit Diamond Four. Maybe like I wasn't so good at some aspects of the game, but I was a lot better at other aspects of the game, and that's why I hit Diamond Four. Um, and so I think I think for anyone who's like facing confidence issues in the game, like you are the rank that you are for a reason. And there's variance to it for sure. Like sometimes you might be a little bit higher, sometimes you might be a little bit lower, but um, I think I think you just have to keep playing at your peak elo, and you'll be fine. I think that's something I definitely realized over time.
Would you say there's a situation talking about I want to talk about confidence because I'm thinking about broken by concept mailbag, and we have so many people talk about confidence issues.
Yeah,
Was there any situations in terms of your rank journey where you like had zero? You're like, I'm just out of my depth. Like I'm just capped. This is it.
that was Diamond Four for me. Like, and then and this, when you first hit Diamond Four, that's when you get like all the streamers and you get all the, um, you get all the players with like insane egos, and you get like the one tricks who have like. I think there's like honestly like there's like some really mechanically talented like one tricks in Diamond Four as well, and like you see all these players, um, and it can be mentally taxing because you don't feel like you belong there. Um, with all these players. And so I think that definitely that like my confidence was an absolute low when I was Diamond Four. Like that's when I started playing on a Smurf, and that's when I was avoiding playing ranked on my main as much as I could, um, and all of those kinds of things. But I mean, all I had to do was just play on my main account, and then I realized that like it's fine. Like I can play at this level, and yeah.
So what made you? So you said someone just from Saltu just told you to play on your main. Like was it? It must have been something else that triggered. You're like, okay. Was you like, I just want to test out Rek'Sai on my main, like even though I'm like
Yeah,
struggling in
just give
platinum.
it a crack. Like it's like I'm tired of playing Platinum 4 or Platinum 3 games. Like let me play some Diamond games and let me see what happens. That's literally all it was. Like just take a crack in Diamond, I guess, and it worked out.
More invisible narratives. Eahan, keep listening.
More invisible narratives. Other invisible narratives. My I think one big one as well is you know playing into ganking junglers, especially. I think that's a big one that I had. Um, like a lot of champions, they kind of come down to like either you're playing like a scaling farming champion or you're playing a ganking champion. And when you play into like ganking junglers like Nunu or Jarvan, um, it feels like you can't do anything. Like you always get frustrated at your teammates for dying. Like my bot lane. my bot lane died to a Jarvan gank. They must be trolling. I pinged out where the Jarvan was. Like, there's no way that they should have died. But what I realized over time is like, like laners have their own game too. They have their own way of looking at the game. And so when I started to understand what they were trying to do, I started to realize that, like my teammates aren't always boosted, like the reason that they died to this Jarvan gank or this Rek'Sai gank isn't because they were like just ignoring my pings. Maybe they had a wave that they really needed to push out the tower, and because they couldn't get this wave into tower, they died. Or maybe, like maybe they're playing against a Leona and they just got flash engaged on or something. Like there's definitely more going on than it just seems like.
Like they're just dying, they just suck. They're dying because they suck. That was the narrative that you had.
They're
And
dying 'cause
then
they suck. Yeah.
you broke that down once you started thinking, okay, you asked the question, why are they dying? What's going on
Yeah.
with their wave? Are they in trouble?
I think that's a big thing. I think that's something you started to bring to the Saltu review sessions. You started to talk about wave states. I think a few months in, and that's something I never really thought about. That like my bot lane, like if they don't push this wave in, then they're screwed. They're gonna lose so much.
There's
gold.
no way they're gonna die. They're bound to die. There's nothing you can do about it.
They're bound to die, exactly. And then that's where you can kind of unlock another level of League of Legends, right? That's where you can say, if my laners, like if this is what my laners need to do, they need to push this wave in. Maybe I can sit here and I can hover them for a few seconds so that they can get this wave in, and I can help them do what they want instead of just thinking that like my laners are griefing, thinking about like what do my laners want to do and how can I help them do it, if that makes sense. That's like kind of like a mindset shift, but it helps a lot.
Would you use the term you have empathy for your laners more so now?
Yeah, I definitely do. I definitely like you understand why things are happening. I mean, obviously your laners will still make like really big mistakes, and they'll definitely
Yep. It's not all perfect sunshine and rainbows. It's like, they're just dying only because their wave's in a bad state. It's like, well, they're dying because they're just randomly just taking a bad trade where it's like, whoa, I didn't know you were going to do that,
Yeah, I mean, that definitely sometimes happens, but you can definitely understand more. Like you know why things are going to happen. You know why things happened, and so I think empathy for laners is a good way to put it.
Other narratives, Eashan?
Other narratives. I think those are the big ones. Honestly, I think those are the main ones I can think about on my journey.
You'd say that once you broke those down, those are the ones you had the biggest breakthroughs in terms of your gameplay. It's like, okay, I'm thinking about lane states more. I can actually do things as Eve in the early game, and then these is where you started propelling through the ranks.
Yeah, I think it all really boils down to like you just have to make the right decisions at the end of the day. Like there's all this like crap that doesn't matter, but as long as you're making the right decisions for every game and for the chaos of SoloQ, like for every game state, then you'll be like fine. And so I think that's like it's kind of what it boils down to.
I want you to talk a bit about your view on chaos of SoloQ. I use that word a lot in Saltu. We talk about embracing the chaotic nature of SoloQ. What does that mean to you? I feel like a lot of players struggle, especially new people that come into Saltu. They get very upset around the chaos, and especially in terms of you see people on Reddit and stuff. They're like talking about like solo queues, like they don't play ranked because it's just so ridiculous and whatever. It's not real. Like League of Legends is like and obviously in high elo the comparison between solo queue and scrims, it's like, well, scrims like a perfect game. Everyone's trying to play a perfect game. How did you grapple with the chaos that is solo queue? That's inevitable at the end of the day.
This was definitely something very hard. I guess there you brought up another invisible narrative. That's that's a big one, right? And I think this is something I really struggle with, and I see a lot of players in Saltu struggle with this as well. You have a very structured game plan that you want to follow through with, and maybe you're playing Olaf and you want to start blue, you want to do your full clear, you want to play for Crab, and you want to back on level 4, right? But maybe you're on your blue buff and you get late invaded by the entire enemy team level 1 and you die on your blue buff. And then you're like, well, shit, like I don't know what to do anymore, right? And that's the chaos of solo queue. And I think what's like important to understand there is like that's like the time where you have to be creative, and that's the time where you have to try and like problem solve, and that's the time where you can't just use like stock standard solutions that you've come up with in reviews, or that you've kind of like thought about earlier to kind of help you through these situations. And so I think I think a lot of it is just knowing that it's going to happen, knowing that solo queue is going to be chaotic, and being ready to adapt. adapt very
How did
easily.
you learn? So how did you learn to be able to adapt in those situations?
Just losing like a ton. Like
Practice, just losing.
there's
So you just kept on experiencing situations, just be like, okay, I fucked up here. Was it things you looked at in the review, like when you reviewed your games, you were like, I should have adapted this way? I mean, obviously we talked a lot about it in our review
yeah,
sessions, but sort of like, yeah, how did you learn that? Because I found that's
yeah,
really hard to teach people.
yeah, absolutely. Like I mean, I'll talk about it from the perspective of invades because I think that's the biggest thing that like at
Yep.
least an Evelyn player really struggles with, right? But anytime the enemy jungler wants to make things chaotic for me as an Evelyn player, like they always try and invade me. Like they'll
Disrupt your level 4
move,
path.
they'll invade my Gromp, they'll three camp invade me on my second buff, they'll invade me on my second clear, they'll try and reverse clear back to the crab and invade, like fight me on the crab that I think is mine, like all kinds of stuff, right? And what I found like over a process of just playing a ton of games and just reviewing is like anytime that I panic, anytime that I freak out, like if I'm full clearing and the enemy jungler shows up on my red and I just freak out and I try and fight them and like lose my red and die or something, anytime that I kind of panic, the situation almost always goes poorly.
Mm.
And whenever I go into the review and I look at that situation, right, there's a very clear, very objective way that I could have come out ahead. Like if Shaco invades me on my red, instead of fighting him, if I just like calmly went back around and like took his raptors and krugs and then took bot crab or something, then I would have come out ahead. And I think over like so many games of having like just crazy shit happening in game, like what I realized is like if I just accepted that this is the way it is and if I just stayed calm, there's almost always something I could have done to to make it out of the situation. And so I think nowadays I'm a lot more calm. Like sometimes I even die to invades. Like if someone comes and kills me on my blue or something, like it's like okay, it happened. Let's figure out what to do next. Let's figure out how to adapt to the situation. I think it's a lot about staying calm. That's something I learned.
So staying calm allows you to think more objectively instead of being emotionally. Like, I mean, obviously, that's the definition of being calm, not being emotional. But you found like if you were to get invaded here and you were just getting emotionally, I mean, the games would just go always downhill. But you actually able to recover from these games that you got invaded still from.
Yeah. There's like when something crazy happens that's like not unexpected. The reason that it's unexpected is usually because there's like some counterplay available elsewhere for you to take advantage of. There's usually like, if you think the enemy jungler is going to be topside and they show up bot side, it's chaotic, it's unexpected. But the reason that it's unexpected is usually because it's like suboptimal, or usually because it's not something that should be happening in a game. And so there's always a way to take advantage of it. I think that's something I realized. Like if you freak out and you try and compensate, or you try and like react to what they're doing, then it's almost always going to go badly for you. But if you stay calm and realize like why is it bad that they should bot? Like what are they losing for invading me? What is going wrong like for the enemy team by making the game so chaotic? And then you can always find um, a solution through that. I found.
All right, moving on, talking again about you're actually the gameplay, the games you'll be playing throughout the year. We talk a lot about high intensity in Saltu, playing with high intensity. How did you think about that? Like when I first was talking about that, like levels of focus in your games and intensity. What was your initial reaction when you heard that term being used by myself?
I thought I always played with high intensity. Like you focus on the game, you're thinking about what's going on. Like what could possibly be more high intensity than that, right? Like you're playing the game. Like what like what does it mean to be high intensity, right? So I don't think I really grasped the concept at all. I just thought that what I was doing this whole time was high intensity. I thought like low intensity was like people who are like alt tabbing in the middle of games, like check Discord, or like listening to podcasts during their games or something. I thought that's what low intensity meant. But
So you never did any of that. So you were literally just a only in-game sound. You didn't listen to music. You felt like you were
much.
relatively focused. And I mean, obviously, I mean, I guess you picked up the 3 block process very early on as
Mhm.
well. So, which is obviously, you said helps. I mean, we'll talk about that soon. Um, so how do you play with high intensity, or is it just something you just naturally have? Like, this is really interesting to me because I think like people struggle with playing with high intensity.
Well, I wouldn't say that I was playing with high intensity. Like I thought that that's what it meant to play with high intensity, right? And I think a
Got
lot of
it.
players, I mean, I think like the average player I mean, if they're serious about climbing, they're not going to be like alt tabbing in the middle of their games. They're not going to be, listening to podcasts or, getting up to like go open the door or something in the middle of like a ranked game, right? I think people understand that like, these things, um, you need to focus on your game if you want to win. But I think what really reframed that for me, I remember there was a game I brought to you as an Olaf game, and I was doing my full clear on Olaf. I got to my Raptor camp, and I think season 10, when you do the full clear, when you try and kill Raptor camp on Olaf, you have to use 3 Qs. You don't turn on your W, and so if you cancel like one auto attack or if you fuck it up a little bit, you're gonna die to the Raptors. And that's exactly what happened to me. I brought the review. I got through my wolves. I got to my Raptor camp. I canceled like 2 autos, and I died to the Raptor camp. And I told you, like I asked you, what was my mistake here? How could I have avoided this? And you said you just have to play with high intensity. Like you just can't.
You gotta focus, yeah.
Focus. That's it. Like there's nothing more complicated, right? And the analogy you gave me was to think of playing League as like being a gladiator, right, or being a Spartan. And so like a gladiator in a gladiator match, right? Like it's a matter of life and death. Like they're playing the game to win against their opponent, to kill their opponent, so that they don't die themselves. And so, it's the same mindset in League. Like you can't be okay with making mistakes. You can't be okay with like, I died on my Raptors, sucks, right? You can't be okay with that. A gladiator, they're going to make sure that their weapons are completely sharp. They're going to make sure their armor is like fitting like perfectly well. They're going to make sure that they're not like, watching YouTube videos between Q. They're going to make sure that they're fully focused. And so, the mindset that I take when I'm playing with high intensity is like, I'm playing like a gladiator. Like this is the quarterfinals for Worlds. Like this is like, if I don't win this game, I'm out of Worlds. If I don't win this game, the other gladiator is going to kill me. Like I have to win this game. And I think that's like the mindset that brings me the most high intensity when I have that mindset. And I think that really helped me when you brought me that analogy.
Yep. Yeah, it's great. Okay, so I misunderstood there. So that was your first reaction. You thought you were playing with high
That's
intensity,
right.
but then later on you're like, well, there's actually another level to that. Like,
Yeah.
and it's interesting because the thing that I feel like people really struggle to grasp, I want to get your thoughts on this, is you're playing a video game and it's not meant to, it's like we're just relaxing, just like, we're just playing some League. But if you want to climb and improve, it's not the game for those type of players. What do you think in terms of that? Like, because again, you're very ingrained where gaming's like you don't have to like try that hard.
Yeah. I mean, there's 2 different ways. Like, I think for those kinds of people, like gaming can definitely be a casual, like relaxing thing. And that was what League was for me for like 7 years, right? It
For
was a
the seven
casual,
seasons when you're silver gold, yeah.
yeah, it was like a casual relaxing. It was something I did for fun, right? Like after I
Working
had
on mechanics, get
school,
those montage plays. That was what was fun for you, getting the
yeah,
montage
just sending
plays.
like I mean, you could probably find my Reddit if you search Reddit Splash of Crimson. It's just me like posting montage clips that I
Oh, really? That's great. I didn't know
yeah,
that.
you could find you could find it. It's on
Yeah.
there. Like Zed plays, Yasuo plays, all this ridiculous stuff. But what do you call it? Um, like what League has become for me now that like I've graduated from school and I'm starting to like think about my life more seriously is like League for me is a tool for self-improvement and self-development. And so if something is a tool for self-development or self-growth, I need to take it seriously. It's not like it's fun, obviously it's fun to improve, but I'm not finding fun from the game. I'm finding fun from the process of improving. And so you know, I think both are valid ways to approach the game, right? It's fine to be a casual player, but it's important to know like which one are you, if that makes sense.
All right, well, let's dive into your process. You talk about you really love the process. Get
Mhm.
really specific. What does a day let's say in general, a day in the life of Eashan look like in terms of relation to League of Legends?
Nice one. Yeah, so I definitely I think this hopefully should be relatable to a lot of people. But I mean, I work full time, 5 days a week. That's from 9 to 5 or 6 p.m. I'm usually working, and so what that means is I don't really have a lot of time to physically play the game. Uh, and time like I have time in between. Like I might have a lunch break. I might have time in the morning. Um, I might have time like on public transit. But what's really important is that I have like 2 hours of like uninterrupted time where I can focus on just playing the game. And so that's usually how much time I can manage. 2 hours a day on the weekdays, and then 4 to 5 hours a day on like the weekends. I can kind of stretch it to 4 or 5 hours a day. And so what that usually means is I have a long day of work, and then after I come back from work, I usually take like a few minutes to de-stress, get a snack, and then I'm playing like one three block, like one high intensity three block for 2 hours.
So that's
Um,
3 games of straight 3 games. You always play that 3 games, even if you're feeling a little bit off.
Literally always, 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 always. Like, okay, well, I mean, when I say always, like there are a few days where I'm like, I'm not perfect. There are a few days where I'll, not play at all. Maybe I'll play a few more. Maybe I'll play a few less. But I'd say like 95% of my days, like I'm playing 3 games a day, no matter what. It's like almost become a habit at this point. It feels weird not to play 3 games a day.
During that time. Yeah,
Yeah, during that
interesting.
time. Like
Yeah,
if it's 5:30 and I'm not playing League, like it just feels weird. Like it has to happen.
yeah.
So that's usually what it is. And I usually don't have too much time. So like in terms of reviewing games, that's usually something that happens whenever I have free times. I'll get dinner, and like while I'm eating dinner, maybe I'll review like one of my games. Or tomorrow, like the next day during lunch, if I have like a lunch break, I can like review one or two of my games then. And so that's usually what my process is. And I've stuck to this process. It hasn't changed, not even one bit. It's been the same process I've had since day one, and I keep doing it. It's uh, yeah, that's pretty much what it's been.
In terms of reviewing, a lot of people are very afraid to review games. And reviewing games in League of Legends wasn't a concept until recently, especially, I mean, that's what
Yep.
all my content basically is, in the last couple of years.
Hmm.
What was your perception of reviewing a game? How did you learn how to review better? And let's start with those questions first. I have a couple other ones.
Sure. Yeah. My perception of reviewing games. I mean, I didn't think it was too weird. I think it's something that like you brought pretty early on to the Saltu as well. Like, I mean, it makes sense, right? Like, if you want to improve at something, then you're gonna have to look back at it and like see what mistakes you were making so you can improve on them. Like if you're trying to be a better writer, after you write a piece, you give it to your teacher, and your teacher will give you like comments on your essay and tell you, like these are the different places that you messed up. So I mean, it didn't seem that weird that like you do the same thing in League. Um, in terms of like actual review process and improving it, like knowing how to review, a lot of it comes from watching other people review your games. At first, like I mentioned, like for 7 years, like my process of review was just looking at my plays and seeing, how well, like if I missed it, like a Lee Sin queue, like that was my end of review. Like that's why I lost the game. I missed the Lee
Yeah,
Sin, right?
yeah.
But watching, like for example, you review one of my games or watching someone else review a game in Saltu, you can understand, like what are the things I should be looking for in my own games. What are the mistakes I'm making? Uh, like what are the problems that I can kind of identify in my gameplay? And so, once you've done that a lot of times with someone who's more experienced than you, then you kind of start to do that yourself. Like when you pop up in your own game, you see like the exact same scenario play out where like, okay, I overstayed on this dragon, and like Nathan told me like these 3 times that I was overstaying on dragon, so I can use that to my advantage and say like, okay, this is where I messed up. um, and so over time, like the more reviews that I do with you, or the more reviews that you do in general, or watch in general, you can kind of um, you have more things to look for in your own gameplay, if that makes sense.
So you sort of like unlocked. So just from the coaching that we did and watching content other people, you sort of like unlocked options that you would look for in your reviews. Is that sort of the way you went about it?
Yeah, exactly. Like if I'm to give an example, like when I first learned that I can look at my laners and look at their wave states to see what's going on, right? Before, my review process was, uh, like looking at like where I was dying. If I died, I try and like reverse engineer. Like if I died here, what mistake did I make? Like how did I die? Did I play the fight mechanically poorly? Did I overstay? Was I in the wrong place at the wrong time? And then once I like learned that I can look at laners as well, then I started to think, like why did my laner die here? Could I have avoided my laner dying here? Is there something I could have gotten on the other side of the map when my laner died? And then you teach me about jungle tracking, and now that's like another thing I can think about. Uh, could I have known that the jungler was going to be here? Like, could I have pinged this? Could I have communicated this with my teammates? And I think as I kind of unlock more, it's like a skill tree, I guess. Like as I unlock more things, there's more things that I can look out for in my own review as well.
How did you review your mechanics? How did you think about your mechanics? So it sounded like you were like a mechanical enthusiast. You only looked at the mechanics, and then leveling up mechanics. 'Cause, I mean, when you first joined SoloQ, I mean, you weren't a mechanically very good player, and it's like you had gold mechanics. At the end of the day,
Yep,
still when you were
pretty
first there, it's
much.
like, and that's always hard for me to teach mechanics as well. It's like I can say here, but at the end of the day, you have to practice it yourself and like look at it in your own game. So how did you? Because a lot of the things you mentioned there, Ishan, that was sort of like decision making in terms of
That's
like
right.
macro. I guess I hate the word macro in a way, but it's like sort of like decision making, in terms of
Yep.
situations. Like I go here, or like I should have gone there. But yeah, how do you think about mechanics when you review that?
Mechanics is a hard one for sure.
Mm.
And the reason it's hard is because you can like if I'm playing a skirmish and I like I use my Evelyn R too early, or I miss my Q on a target, then you can say like, oh, that's why I lost the skirmish. But it's very hard to replicate that, right? Like 20 games in the future, you might make the same mistake, uh, and that's really hard to kind of avoid doing. You can't just like, it's not like a decision that you can just stop making, right?
Yeah, it's like you see it like, oh, I'm never gonna ult someone with this amount of HP with Eve so that I don't get the kill again. It's like, well, that's probably gonna happen because you're gonna miss something, or is it, that's right? Yeah, you can't
Right.
just
There's, I
fix it
mean,
instantly.
there's always situations that change, and like, I think the really dumb answer is like, I think it comes down to a few things. If you're always playing with high intensity, always playing a lot of games on your champion, and really trying to take risks in skirmishes to know that like what you're capable of. I think you
Limit
really have to
testing is the
try.
word that is used in the community. So you limit testing, you have to limit test, you found, to actually know your limits in
You
the
have to try.
skirmishes.
You have to
Try.
try,
Yeah.
right? Like for the longest time, I was scared of diving people on Evelyn because I would just horribly misexecute
Mm.
it, right? But you just have to keep doing it over and over again. You just have to keep dying. And then over time, what I learned is like, you know, uh, when I charmed the enemy, like I started to learn like the range at which I should charm the enemy, right? Before I would charm too early or I would charm too late, and that's like a mechanical thing, right? But after doing it so many times, I kind of start to get a sense of like I should be charming him, I should be charming them at this distance, and then you know whether I should lead with an E or whether I should lead with a Q, I start to kind of understand that as well, and I think that just comes with a lot of like trying it yourself and trying it and trying it and trying it and starting to like kind of figure out what works and doesn't work. It kind of becomes muscle memory to a degree. That's what I would say. Because if you're a player who like kind of avoids those scenarios entirely, I think it's almost impossible to improve mechanics. Um, so you really have to try. I think it's really
Not be afraid, I guess. I guess the key word is you were afraid to do certain things, and it's not till you
Mhm.
did it then you were able to do it.
That's right. That's right. You just have to do it. Like you think it's a good play, like go for it. And then if it doesn't work, then figure out why it didn't work, and then just try it again. And like you do it 20 times, like if you're bound to get it right eventually, right? Like you're bound to get it right. So that's the best that I've figured out how to improve my mechanics. There's definitely better ways out there, but it's worked for me.
So how did your review process or process in general, did it evolve over time? Like what changed? What sort of things did you see? What worked and what didn't work that you found?
Yeah, that's a good question. What I used to do when I was a platinum player, I had like a spreadsheet where I would keep track of all the games I played, and I would take notes on like all my mistakes and like my progress on my learning objectives. And um, I had a champion mastery page for Evelyn, and I would like talk about like I would write down all the little tricks that I learned from Evelyn from watching streamers or just playing myself. And all the coaching sessions I did, I would like note them down on this Excel sheet. Um, and what I found is that it was like way too heavyweight for me. It was way it took a lot of the fun out of the process, and it was just it's just something that I didn't feel like doing. And so my review sessions now are a lot more lightweight. I'll just kind of look at the games over myself. I won't really write anything down. Maybe I'll bust out a notepad if I want to like write down some questions for a review session, but just having a much more lightweight session where I can just kind of think about what's going on and what's going wrong uh, has worked really well for me. And I think with this, as much as like improving mechanics, I think you have to try a lot of things and figure out what works for you. Like for someone else, maybe having like a really detailed like writing down everything that they could improve on and every mistake they made, maybe that will help them better. But that's not something that worked for me.
Um, Getting really specific here, what sort of things were you looking for in your games throughout the ranked brackets? Like, again, let's go in here. Like, what were you sort of focusing on in your gameplay from gold 2 to, let's say, plat 4?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think gold 2 to platinum 4, that was kind of my Olaf phase. I was looking a lot at the first 5 to 10 minutes of the game, and I think that was the most important thing. So, you know, getting the full clear, getting the full clear right, deciding whether or not you can go for the crab, like the art of the scuttle crab, right? Knowing you know, if my laners have prio, then I go for the crab. If my laners don't have prio, I go for the opposite crab. Um, going for objectives. Do my laners have priority? Can I go for the objective? If my laners don't have priority, then I can't go for the objective. Um, if I have vision control, then I can go for the objective. If I don't have vision control, I can't go for the objective. It was a very simplified view of the game. Like, I think these were mostly the things I was looking for. And a lot of my mistakes.
That's it. That's literally all you're looking at, basically. Yeah. I mean, obviously you're making lots of other mistakes, but that's what you focused on.
That's literally it. Like, a lot of my mistakes would be like, I tried to contest like on Olaf, you just have like you really want to contest every dragon, right? So I tried to contest a dragon when my bot lane had no priority, and then their bot lane would come first and kill me. That was like most of my mistakes in the gold bracket. And then
thinking about climbing through platinum, what were you focusing on there?
So platinum is when jungle things like jungle tracking really came into play. So I got really good at pinging when I was in my platinum stage. So like I became a psycho pinger actually. Like I was so crazy about pinging. Like I would exhaust my pings. Like anytime I knew that the jungler would be on the top side of the map, it would be like danger, 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 danger. Like just spam danger pings on my top laner. If I knew like where the jungler started, I'd just be like pinging the crap out of them. And in my reviews, a lot of the things I'd be thinking about was if the jungler was somewhere that I didn't expect them to be, I would kind of think about why didn't I expect them to be there? Like, is there something I missed? Is there something I wasn't thinking about? And I think one thing that really helped me get through platinum was understanding where like always knowing where the enemy jungler was. And I think once I fixed that helped me a lot. A few other small things. I think this is around the time when you started releasing the kind of zero depth series on Evelyn. Like, or you played a few champions. I think you played Evelyn for one of them. But just like this mindset of like, you should never be dying, and like if you do die, it's probably a big mistake. So every time I would die, I would look at my deaths and say, why did I die? What mistake did I make to allow me to die? And I think fixing that helped me a lot. I think now I average like 1 to 2 deaths max on Evelyn, because I know like how to avoid deaths, like what are good deaths, what are bad deaths, things like that. And I think the third thing that I really improved here that helped me a lot was tempo of camps, like farm and experience. So what I realized is there's a lot of like waves that I was missing. Like if my top laner died, for example, and there's like a wave that was pushing into his tower, I would just not even pick up the wave, and that's like a whole like a level and a half of golden experience missed. Or I'd just be sitting somewhere on the map for an absurd amount of time while all my camps were spawning. And so looking at those three things in my reviews, I think really helped me through the platinum bracket.
All right, so talking about where the D4, let's minimize it, D4 to D3. I mean, it seems like it was pretty smooth sailing to you, but it was what were you sort of focusing on when you sort of hit Diamond 4? I mean, obviously you had that period where you went down, you'd lost confidence, and you went down to playing Zinzai Rek'Sai, but once you bounced back, what were you sort of focusing on here?
This was a lot of the same things, honestly. It was just refinement, like refinement of if you're dying 3 times, let's make that 2 times. If you have 100 CS at 10 minutes, let's make that 120. It was a lot of refinement of like the small details that got me from Diamond 4 to Diamond 2. And I like I mentioned, this bracket wasn't too difficult for me, because I already had a lot of the kind of things in place for me to succeed here.
Yep. So again, it was just refined. You already had the foundation. You're sort of just building on it a little bit more.
Exactly.
Sort of like...
Exactly. And here, this is the fun one. This is the Diamond 2 to Masters, right? So this was, I think, my biggest breakthrough so far in terms of like improving at the game. And this is what I mentioned. This kind of came down to just understanding laners and understanding what laners want to do. And that's like a whole facet of the game that I didn't even understand, understanding like what my Camille wants to do into a Renekton matchup, understanding that, like if my top laner is a Kale, like, he probably can't respond to the crab because he's like playing a weak early champion into like a gangplank or something. Um, a lot of it was a lot of like gathering knowledge. Like I would watch a ton of top lane VODs and mid lane VODs and AD carry VODs, which I don't think is necessary, by the way. Like I don't think you need to do any of that, but it's just like understanding what my laners want to do. And so once you understand what your laners want to do, you can kind of come up with good win cons. You can come up with good game plans, and you can come up with um, good strategies to figure out how to win games. Like I think one example of this, like I was playing with a Camille, like I was playing Evelyn, I was playing with a Camille when I was like Diamond 2. Um, and so apparently she was like a master smurf or something. And so after the game, like she was like flaming me all game because I think I was playing for like my Jinx Thresh bot lane or something. Um, and so she was flaming me the whole game. And so I added her after, and she did like a VOD review with me. Um, and what she said is like, it's good that you're playing for your Jinx and your Thresh, but what you have to understand is like the enemy team has like Aphelios and Irelia and has like these champions, and they're really good at team fighting. And I'm playing Camille, which is like a split push champion, and you're playing Evelyn, which is really good at like facilitating split push. So if you just like played for me instead of your bot lane, we could have just won in the side lane together. And what I started to understand was like, like my Camille wants to play this certain way, my Thresh wants to play this certain way, my Jinx wants to play this certain way. And so for me to come up with a good win con in game, I have to understand what everyone wants to do. And then I have to play towards what will give me the highest chance of winning. So like, if our team is really good at split pushing, I should play for the split push champion because then, we can win to the side. If my team is really good at team fighting, then, maybe I need to group as 5 and I need to play for the team fight. And so it was a lot of just understanding what laners want to do and understanding what laners do.
So you'd start adapting your games based on your laners rather than being really selfish yourself, because obviously that's sort of what like the Eve mindset is specifically. It's like play for yourself to carry. I guess that's what sort of everyone's advice is climbing up the ladder. It's like be selfish, be selfish. We actually found it was actually more so the opposite, or like how did you view being selfish in terms of playing with your laners and making sure you're strong? Because sometimes people might overdo it. I think it's easy to overdo sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, I think you can still be selfish, like. But understand what your laners want to do, right? Like if you're playing Evelyn, like you want to selfishly get kills to get your Magi stacks up, right? But if you understand that like your Camille, once your Camille breaks top tower, she's going to try and like split in the side lane. You can use that to your advantage, right? Like that Camille's going to be pushing top, so you can hover your Camille and you can wait for people to come and just eat them up and get like free Magi stacks. If your team's really good at team fighting, you don't need to like waste time in a side lane. If you know that you guys win the 5v5 no matter what, then just sit in the mid lane, like flash R5 people, get like 5k damage off and just win the game, right? You can still be selfish, but understanding what your team wants to do, I think helps with that a lot more. Or at least that's what I found.
So you'd say that's the biggest thing, just understanding more about the game. I guess it's sort of like talking more game knowledge stuff in general. So just increasing your game knowledge really helped get you D2 to master.
Yeah, just knowing what, and also being aware of it in game, right? Like, and this comes down to wave states a lot. Like if my top laner is slow pushing a huge cannon wave, beforehand, what I would do is I would just I would see like a dive opportunity once the wave's already crashed into the tower. But, knowing that my laner is slow pushing a wave, I can assess that, maybe she wants to play for a dive. If we deny this wave from the enemy laner, then they're going to be down like 2k gold. And then, the lane's going to be really easy for my top laner. Understanding like what my laners are trying to do and what my laners want to do, then, I can be there for the dive before it even happens. I can be there before the wave crashes into the tower. And I can make the play. Which I might not have been able to play if I had just reacted to what was happening. So just understanding like what laners want to do and then being aware of what laners are actually doing in the games. I think it's the biggest thing. Like that's what's helped me the most in this bracket.
All right, so all through these brackets, you didn't mention mechanics really once at all, Eashan.
Mm-hmm.
Was this just sort of a gradual thing? Was that sort of like a little side thing that was just improving slowly? Like what happened there? Was that like, or is the things you just mentioned, but those are the most important points?
Yeah, I mean, I think again, like decision making is like at the end of the day, the most important part of League of Legends. Making the right decisions, being in the right place at the right time. Like, if I have a Draven Leona lane, I'm playing Evelyn, and I go down, and I understand that that's my strongest lane, that's my win con, and the enemy has like a Misfortune Yumi. I can get a free kill on their misfortune Yumi. Like even if I fuck up the play a little bit, even if I like I missed my first Q, uh, because I made the right decision, because I was in the right place at the right time, it still works out for me. And if you're playing Evelyn with 15 kills, even if you fuck up your mechanics a little bit, you're still gonna you're still gonna be able to carry the game, right? So I think like those things matter the most, but mechanics is always something that you improve over time, and that's something that you improve by just playing a lot of games, and limit testing and trying to push your limits. Like that's something that just improves. Like I would say my mechanics on Evelyn right now are like a master tier level mechanics, where like when I was a platinum player, my mechanics on Evelyn were like at a platinum level, and that's just something that improved gradually over time as I was making better decisions and I was trying new things. Um, and whatnot. So I never like it wasn't like a very active thing. Like I didn't think actively about improving my mechanics. It's just something that happened over time by playing a lot of games.
So obviously, talking about all these things you were focusing on,
Hmm.
obviously a lot of it was like you talked a lot about in terms of Evelyn specific. So talking more
That's
about
right.
champion mastery here, would you contribute champion mastery a huge reason for your ability to climb here,
One hundred
or
percent.
so you think that and like how do you view learning the game through the lens of a champion? Like at the end of the day, it's like, well, sure, you may be a one trick Eve. You're at the end of the day you are a master tier Eve player, but let's say if you play Rek'Sai, you may be like a diamond player or whatever. But that's your baseline has improved. You're no longer obviously going to be like let's say if you're not going to be a gold level because obviously your knowledge here is obviously increased
That's
over
right.
time as well.
That's
So
right.
how do you think about Chair Master in terms of lens of learning the game and is it important? Like, do you think everyone should just be one tricking like doing your sort of journey?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I don't think you have to one trick, or maybe even should one trick. I think something that you and Curtis both talk about in the Broken by Concept podcast a lot is like the advantage of having like two or three champions that you kind of come back to over and over again. Um, and I think the reason for that is while there is a benefit to being a one trick, you also miss out on some aspects of the game. Like because I play so much Evelyn, I might not be so good at playing around vision. Like if laners place like yellow trinkets all over the place, um, I might not be so good at like
Hmm.
knowing that they're going to place these words and playing around them because my champion can just avoid them entirely. Um, I might not be so good at skirmishing because my champion plays like with one shots. So there are disadvantages to being a one trick, but I think learning the game through the lens of the champion is really important, and there's two reasons for that in my opinion. The first reason is by playing like two or three champions, but you have like hundreds or even thousands of games with those champions, you just have like an inherent advantage in champ select. Like there's just something so OP about like if you've played like 600 games of Kiana and the enemy jungler just picks something like Talon that's meta and they've played like 10, 15 games of Talon, like even if they make like a slightly better decision than me, like I just know my limits. I know how much damage I can do. I know how much I know what's possible and what's not. I know the ranges of all my abilities, and so I just have like an inherent advantage in the game. And like why wouldn't you want to have like an inherent advantage in your game?
Hmm.
So there's an aspect of that, and the other aspect is playing the game through the lens of champion mastery allows you to kind of focus a lot more on the fundamentals, if that makes sense. Like
So
you
like
know,
jungle tracking and going through a camps and like looking at
yeah,
lanes is these
exactly.
this sort of stuff.
Exactly. Like if you're full clearing on Kiana for like the fifth time, you're worrying so much about how am I going to place my Q, how am I going to place my E, how am I going to move from camp to camp, and so like how are you possibly going to think about like looking at mid lane, see what's happening, look at bot lane, see what's happening. How are you possibly going to think about what decision I'm going to make next? Like if I'm ganking bot lane as Evelyn, I know exactly how to play that. I know that I should be charming the support. I know that should I be leading with Q or E? I know how long to wait. I know exactly how long the charm's going to last. So like during the play, I can start thinking about what am I going to do next? Where am I going to go next? And if you don't have champion mastery, like how can you possibly think about that? So I think you just it gives you an avenue to improve at the fundamentals, which are the things that really matter.
How do you get good at a champion? So let's say you had like learning
Hmm.
the fundamentals and then you sort of like learning the champion separately, or is it joined together? Like, so how does the process you think work in terms of champion mastery?
I think there are two separate things for sure. Like you like like your champion is like how you like what you're piloting in the game, and that champion that you pilot allows you to do certain things. Like it allows you to kind of apply the fundamentals in your game. And so the first step is really being able to pilot the champion in the first place. To be like you can't counter gank. Like if the correct decision somewhere is to counter gank, you can't do that until you have a handle of your champion. And so I think those are two, like those definitely need to be two separate things. And so to improve like your champion, to get better at a champion and improve your champion mastery, it's really a matter of playing a lot of games.
Because at the end of the day, though, there's people in Platinum with 3,000 games of one champion, right?
That's
so
right.
It's like, what's going wrong? You know?
Yeah, exactly. Like, I mean, it's like I think the simple answer, maybe like the little bit of a cop out answer, is like, you know, playing games of high intensity and like trying new things and trying to figure out, you know, like trying to take risks and figure out, you know, why things aren't working, and like, you know, trying to adapt. Like I think you know you can mindlessly, like I could mindlessly play like 2,000 games of Kiana. I mean an example, like I probably have like 600k mastery points on Katarina. That doesn't mean I know like a single thing about Katarina. Like I have like 500k mastery points on Zed, like 250 on Yasuo, right? But like I don't know a single thing about those champions. If you drop me into a diamond game with Yasuo, I'd probably int my ass off.
And that's because you didn't spend time with an improvement mindset towards them. Like
Like
you
I
just
wasn't.
played.
Yeah,
Why is it different?
I was just playing, right? I was just, you know, queuing up and doing the exact same things, right? Like if I'm playing like Yasuo and a Katarina, for example, I'm taking the trades in the exact same way. I'm not changing the way I'm taking
Based
trades.
on matchup. Yeah. You didn't study matchups or anything like that. You
I
just
didn't study
playing.
matchups.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
Got
just
it.
playing. Like if I'm playing Lee Sin, right? I'm not I'm not changing my approach to a gank based on the enemy champions. I'm just like, oh fuck, like Q ward jump R no matter what. Like I always have to insect them or something like that. I'm not thinking about, like I'm not actively thinking about what I'm doing. And so, you know, when you approach the game from an improvement mindset, you know, in Evelyn, like if I'm ganking bot lane, like the first time I gank bot lane, I might charm the AD carry, and you know, it's not going to work because then the enemy Leona is just going to flash on me and throw all her CC. But then the next time I charm the Leona, and then, you know, things work out better. And then over time, you know, it's almost like a process of evolution, right? Like over time, like all the bad things get weeded out, and like all the things that actually work end up staying. But you have to be really critical, and you have to really think about, you know, what's working and what's not, and you have to apply that to your games. And I think with champion mastery in specific, one thing that really helps is watching experts play. Like what I did, I watched a lot of Malice. Malice is like one of the best Evelynns in the world right now. And, you know, I'd watch him play and I'd see him do things that I didn't know were possible. I never thought about on Eve. There's all these little tricks that you learn. Like, for example, you know, like if like a champion, like, you know, a champion's in a bush and you're approaching that bush with Evelyn, you get like a little exclamation mark that shows up in your head that tells you, you know, that there's a champion in the bush that sees you, right?
Yep.
And so what Malice does is when the exclamation mark shows up, he'll immediately flash into the bush and like use his entire combo in R.
Yeah.
And that's not something you think about, right? Because like when you see that exclamation mark on your head,
you just run away.
Your
initial reaction. Right? Yeah.
Your instant reaction, or you try running into the bush and then you get CC'd, right? Because the way you think about like a laner, right? Like if someone's waiting in a bush and they see an Evelyn, they're going to use all their hard CC immediately, right? Because they don't want to die, because Evelyn's going to one-shot you in 2 seconds. So if you know that that's what people are going to think, if you instantly flash into the bush, then
you dodge all the CC and then
you look like a badass, and then you just
yeah, that's really interesting.
Like, there's just like little tricks that you pick up, and, you know, like I wouldn't have known that if I didn't see Malice's, if I didn't watch someone better than me pilot my champion, or, you know, knowing that like I can like flash ult smite dragon at 3k HP. Like I didn't know I could do that, but watching someone do it, I think watching experts, and they don't necessarily need to be people who are really good at the game either. They can be people who are just good at the champion, if that makes sense. If your focus is on champion mechanics specifically, like you can watch Scrub Noob play Rengar. Like maybe he's not the highest elo player, or like DoNL play Hecarim, but they definitely know how to pilot the champions, and they know all the ins and outs of the champion. And like once you get a handle with that, then you can start focusing on fundamentals, which comes after. But yeah.
Here's an interesting one. What are some things? Let's say again, this time last year when you first joined SoloQ, obviously one thing you didn't expect was, you know, how it wouldn't be that easy to climb to Challenger. Is there anything about the process or the improvement in general, or the game in general, that you just didn't expect that really took you by surprise?
anything about the game that I didn't expect.
Mm.
Um,
Or like the process of improving at the game.
One big thing is like things don't feel that much different. Like like from gold to masters, like
Yeah.
obviously there's like the players have gotten a lot better, but
Mm.
like it's a lot of the same shit, you know. Like I was reviewing my games. I was I was making mistakes. I was watching the enemy make mistakes and capitalizing on it in gold. And I'm doing the exact same thing in master. It's not like it's not like the game completely changes and like like you've unlocked like a new like there's like a new monster that spawns in the middle of like the middle.
Yeah.
Like things are mostly the same. And I think one thing that was really surprising is like once I get over the fact that like, oh, I'm playing with diamond players, or oh, I'm playing with master players or platinum players or whatever, the game is mostly the same. Like no matter how crazy high rank or how good you think an enemy is, like they're still gonna make mistakes. They're still gonna
Basic mistakes, right?
make
Like,
basic mistakes. Yeah.
mm.
And I think you did like the challenger series, right? Where you looked at challenger players. Um, even players like Canyon are making like really stupid mistakes. Like like I saw a Korean challenger player like die on his first camp. Like he was trying to solo like a blue buff and he just died on his like
Yeah.
that shit happens. Like it's
Mm.
like, even at the highest levels of play. And so I think one thing that was really unexpected is like as a gold player, I just thought that like challenger players were like these like parthenons of like achievement, that like they don't make any mistakes. They're like unkillable, but that's definitely not the case. Like it's a lot of the same stuff.
All right, so you're currently 0.2% top of the player base here, Ishan. Um,
Surprise.
let's say someone that would say, okay, this guy here, he was hard stuck like gold or whatever for most seasons, but like as you said, you weren't really like trying. You were playing the montage and stuff, and people say, okay, like he just must be talented. Like he applied effort and he's just like smarter than all us, or just talented, and that's why he was able to get to master tier from gold so quickly. What would you respond to that? Sort of talking about talent in the game versus, I guess, hard work.
I think I think it's like well, I'll say two things. First thing, I don't think I'm talented at the game at like to any degree. Like it takes me really long to pick up on concepts. Like I mean, one of the things that we've been talking about in our own reviews for the last like few months is like side lane. Like how do we play for side lanes? How do we predict people when they're going to come up to side wave and take advantage of it to get a pick, right? And it's something that I still struggle with, like trying to learn. I've been working on it for a few months, and it's something that like I think I pick up things very slowly. Um, you know, I mean, sure, I've been like, I didn't really have an improvement mindset, but I have been stuck gold for 7 seasons. It's not, I'm not naturally talented at the game. There are people who pick up the game. Like there was someone who made a Reddit post recently where like they picked up the game. They're like a one trick Vladimir, and they went from like gold to grandmasters in like 500 games or something. Like there are people who are like definitely talented at the game, naturally talented at the game. Like even without an improvement mindset, they can make it really far. Um, but I don't think I'm that at all. Like I've never been good at a game in my life. Like this is the first game that I've even like broken like the top 10% of, let alone 0.2%. And there's nothing like fancy about it. Like I didn't like there's no
It's
like
like some pill, some trick. It's like just build this every game and get to this elo.
like I literally just like the like I mean this entire video can be boiled down to I literally just played 3 games every day for a year. That's literally
Yeah,
all I did. I played three
yeah.
games a day for a year. I reviewed all my games, and like that's all I did. That's all you need to do. Like I mean, it might not take a year for you. It might take you 3 years. It might take you 6 months. But that's all you have to do. I think that's like literally all it is.
How did you use the Saltu reviews in combination with watching content and consuming other content, YouTube, Reddit, and let's say because you got coaching from other coaches as well?
Mm-hmm.
Like, how
I
did
did.
you sort of use it all together? Like,
That's a good question. Like, I think when it comes to improving at League, like there's a lot of different aspects to it, right? There's like game knowledge is one of them, but it's only one aspect of the game. There's also like mental resilience. There's um, discipline and schedule. There's awareness of what's going on. There's mechanical skill. That's like one aspect of the game, right? And every single one of these aspects, there's different resources to help you improve. For example, if you're trying to work on your mentality towards the game, things like watching like Coach Curtis's improvement videos, or watching, the BBC, or, you know, having a better like diet or fitness plan, or these like getting more sleep. Like these are things that can help you with your mentality towards the game. But like for things like game knowledge, maybe you're watching like coaching reviews from like people like Viger V2, or your own coaching reviews, like getting your own SoloQ reviews. Different aspects of the game. There's different resources that kind of help you out, and so I think for the SoloQ reviews in particular, uh, I'm not going to pretend like you necessarily knew like the best answer for every situation. For me, there's definitely things, especially since you don't play every champion in the game, you don't know like all the things about Evelyn, for example. There's things like you don't
Yep.
necessarily know, but one of the things that the SoloQ reviews really helped me with was like problem identification. You might not be able to tell me what the most optimal thing I should be doing at any given time on Evelyn is, but you can tell me, when things start to fall apart and when there's like a problem. You know, for example, I'm doing my first clear and I'm not looking at lanes. Like you can identify it, like Eashan, you're not looking at your lanes, or Eashan, your clear is too slow, or Eashan, um, you overstayed on this dragon and died. Like there's always like problems that you can identify in your games. And so what I would do is like I'd go to the SoloQ reviews, I'd find out all the problems that I was making, and then I'd go and like try and find solutions to my problems. I'd like, if my problem is side lane awareness, I'd watch like a ton of Malice VODs and I'd see, like how is he finding side lane picks? There's a lot
So
of
you had like an objective, and you would like go seek out extra resources to solve this problem that, let's say, I would bring up to you.
exactly.
Or I guess you would find in your gameplay maybe something you noticed. It's like, oh, okay, well, I'm going to try and find information around this.
Yeah, I
That
mean,
sort of.
sometimes it comes up in SoloQ reviews. Sometimes I'll come up with my own reviews for sure. Um, but like for something like side lane awareness, there's a lot of things that come into it. Um, First of all, predicting what laners are going to do in the first place. Like, is this wave a wave someone's going to catch? If Baron's up on the other side and there's like a laner, like there's a wave over here, should I play for the side laner or should I play for Baron? If there's, like where are people going to place their pink wards? How do I know where people are going to place their pink wards? How do I know how people are going to walk? Like all these different things come into side lane awareness, right? And so just watching like a ton of Malice VODs and watching a ton of other junglers and trying to see like how are they finding picks in the side lane, and then using that to kind of try and solve my own problem, I think helps a lot. And that's kind of the process I used.
So again, talking about SoloQ here. So you've watched. I mean, obviously you've been with lots of peers. I mean, you've seen so many people come and go in SoloQ over the last 14 months or so.
Yeah.
What are some things you notice from like the lower elo players? Let's say like the gold and the platinum players. Like you come in, you join the Discord, you jump into one of the sessions, you're just lurking, seeing what's up, what's going on with the gold player. Like, what are some observations you've found? What are some things you maybe see that they're not doing, and maybe where do you think you've maybe have differentiated yourself from these players to get these results?
Two big things, like and I know this might sound like a broken record, but like consistency, I think it's one of the skills that I have. Like I think I'm a very consistent player. One of the things that I've always said is like, when I was a gold player, like I had so many loss streaks in Olaf, but I always said, I'm going to figure out how Olaf works. I'm going to figure out how the champion works, and I'm going to get to platinum with it. And when I got to platinum, when I was playing Evelyn, I think I had a negative win rate on Evelyn for like 350 games. I had a negative win rate on the champion, but I just really wanted to figure out how Evelyn worked. And I think I see a lot in the SoloQ. There's a lot of players, if a champion doesn't work out after like 50, 60, 70 games, they're like, like screw it, I'm going to pick up a new champion, or I'm going to pick up a new play style, or, I'm going to change things up. And I think that's I mean, it's not a bad thing to do. Like if you're not enjoying a champion, I think it's fine to change your champion, but I think there's also an understanding that it's going to set you back, and it's going to make things slower. And the way that I see it is like, if there's one or two players who can play in like Masters Plus in your champion, it's like more than good enough for you to be able to climb. And so you just have to figure out like how do I even if it's like Udyr, like if Udyr has like a 45% win rate, like who cares? Like just figure out what I need to do on Udyr to play at like a Masters level or a Grandmasters level, because it's definitely possible, like no matter what champion you play. And so I think one of the skills that I have that's helped me climb that other people like have not is like I can like I have consistency, and I can just I can play 3 games a day. I don't change things. I don't like even when it comes down to like how I play my champion, like everyone always tells me like, oh, you should try going sorcery secondary in Evelyn. You should try like rushing Sork boost. You should try going Lich Bane. And like maybe these things are better. I don't know, but like I've been going like Boots and Cosmic Insight since like the dawn of time, and I've been going like Medjai's Rabadon's Rush since the dawn of time. Like like that, like I'm just consistent. Like I do that every game, and it's like something I'm so used to. So like I understand how to play that way, and so I think consistency is really important. Like
People might say, I get bored, Eashan.
I mean that's one of like you know, like we were talking about earlier. Like, do you play the game because like you enjoy like the casual like fun of it, or do you play the game like, for me what's fun about the game is the improvement. Like the game is a self-development tool for me. So like if I have to play 1,000 games of Evelyn and I have to do the same thing every game, like I'm fine with that, because like I enjoy the process of seeing myself hit Diamond 4 and hit Platinum 4 and like, you know, get better at making side lane picks and get better at, you know, getting objectives and get better at, you know, getting more CS and getting more XP. Like this is what I find enjoyable about the game. Um, and so like, you know, if you want to climb, like that's what you have to find enjoyable too. That's what you have to find fun in. Like you have to go through like you have to do like the boring stuff sometimes. You have to, you know, like if you're a soccer player, you can't always just be playing the game. You have to do drills sometimes. You have to, you know, you have to run. You have to fix your diet. Like you have to do these things. And I think that it's definitely the same with League. Like that's just how it is.
All right, what do you? Obviously, you know, you've probably thought about your journey over the last, you know, 14 months or so. You probably sort of see people give advice to other players.
Uh-huh.
What would you say? What is some bad advice you've heard to like the, let's say you literally hear something and you said, as a gold player, that is useless advice for me. Like back when I was a gold player, what is some really bad advice you've seen to gold players or lower elo players in general?
I've seen I've seen some really shit. Like if you want to see like a compilation of all the bad advice that people give, just go to like r/summoner school. Like every single thing there is like an example of like if you just don't do what they say, you could probably climb like pretty far.
Just do the opposite.
Just do the opposite. Like,
Yeah.
and I think one thing that makes it difficult is like a lot of the things that people give as advice to low elo players isn't necessarily wrong. It's just like misleading. Like like they'll tell you, uh you know, they'll look at your OPGG, they'll see that you have 4 CS a minute, and they'll tell you, you know, oh, you need to get more CS, you need to get more gold, you need to get more XP, you know, you need to like farm more camps. And like that's, it's not necessarily wrong, you know, like maybe you aren't CSing enough, maybe you aren't getting as much gold and XP as you could, but it's really not getting to the root of the problem. It's not like a very, it doesn't, I guess the best way to put it is like it doesn't adapt to the situation, the situation of the game. You know, you can't get like cookie cutter advice from people. You can't just, you know, get these like general, like people always ask questions like, oh, you know, like what should I do if my laners don't have prio and I want to like contest dragon, right? Like I don't know, like I couldn't tell you the answer to that question. It all depends on the situation, and all.
So you need to get specific. You need to look at that actual game, that actual
Yeah,
situation.
exactly. Like I need to see that clip, and then like, you know, like whenever you see on like Reddit, like threads like r/summoner school, like nobody ever posts clips or anything. It's all just like generalized advice, and that's the advice that you get as a gold player. Like, you know, I was like a member of Summoner School since like season 5. Like I was going through those threads like every week trying to see, you know, like what's the new tip? Like, oh, you can place a ward, like if you place a ward at this exact location, then you get like this much vision, or like you can level 1 cheese. Back when I played a lot of Lee Sin, like there's this trick where like you take your red buff and you'd immediately go to the enemy blue buff and kill them on their blue buff, because I think people used to like leash like Gromp or something back then instead of like the actual buff itself, and so you know you could kill them on their second buff. There's all these like stupid tricks that didn't matter at all. And this is all the advice that people would give, just like these generalized like cookie cutter advice. And like it's not necessarily wrong, you know, it's not bad to go from your red buff to your blue buff and like level 1 invade someone. It's not bad to get more golden experience, but there's more fundamental issues that you have, and those fundamental issues can't really be fixed unless you get really specific. So it's just a lot of crap like that, a lot of advice like that just doesn't mean anything, you know. It's really empty advice. So like I think whenever people ask questions like that, it's really more important to think, you know, like get like specific examples and like show those examples, and we can work through those instead of just like general like questions or advice.
One thing as well, this is just my observation from you, Eashan, is you ask high quality questions, and you know how there's always people say, you know, there's no dumb question, right?
No,
Like, I guess a lot of these questions that are asked, it's like, you know, again, they're not dumb questions, but like then it's not the problem with their gameplay.
Hmm.
right? And if you don't look at the specifics, as you said, it's like, well, you might be asking a question around this, but how about you fix your clear, you're finishing your clear at 340. Like, isn't that maybe what you should focus on first? Like, is this something you've
Exactly.
noticed as well from like just the quality of questions, and it's sort of, how do you ask high quality questions yourself? Like how do you do that?
Yeah, like I think that's spot on. Like a lot of people when you ask questions like very general questions like, oh, what should I do after my first clear? How should I set up a dragon, for example? Like, I think this is a question I've asked in the past, which I think is like a very general question, right? When you ask questions like this, I think it's not like a bad question, but it shows like that you don't really understand what what the problem is, or you don't really understand, like what you're asking for. Um, and so, to really ask high quality questions, I think it's important to, first of all, get specific. Like that's the easiest way to ask a high quality question. When you find yourself asking a question like, "How do I set up a dragon?" or "What should I do after my first clear?" Find like a specific example of your game, because like the reason you had the question is because it came up in your mind during a game at some point in time, right? Like you finished your first clear and you're like, "Oh shit! Like what do I do now?" Right? If you can find that specific example and show it to someone and say, like I did my first clear here. I don't know what to do next. I think that's a high quality question, because that's a question that, um, you know, you can see like the scenarios, and you can, like I can tell you as a high level player like what I would do in this scenario, or you can tell someone like what you would do in this scenario, and that's that's something that leads to answers that you can actually you can actually work on. So I think you have to get really specific, and you have to bring up specific scenarios that people can kind of people can kind of answer for you. I think that's the most important thing.
All right, so let's say, so sort of like more wrapping up here. Someone's watched this entire video. They're like, Eashan's inspired me. I'm a gold player. I'm gonna get to master tier. Like that's my goal. Like what's some I guess general or like specific advice? That's one thing you'll tell them.
Um, okay, so someone wants to go from gold. They want to climb out of gold. Well, the first advice I would give is like, you know, uh, get get a process going and just stick to it. Like it doesn't matter what it is. Like if like you don't even have to play 3 games. Like if you play like 5 games a day and that works for you, like sure, go for it. If that's something that works for you, if you like to play in the mornings, play in the mornings. If you like to play in the evenings, play in the evenings. Um, if you like to review like your game after every time you play, you like to review the game directly after, or you like to review your game in a block like after you've played all your games. Like whatever it is, like whatever your process is, find a process and stick to it consistently, and make it a habit. Because I see a lot of players, they'll maybe play like they'll play like a lot of games for 2 weeks, and then they'll like just disappear for another month. They
Mm,
won't play any games, and then they'll
mm.
come back and they'll play like a ton of games. Then half of the games that they've played when they come back are just them trying to like unrust and like relearn the game, like get used to everything again. So the most important thing I think is like get a process and just stick to it, like no matter what. Like if you lose like 20 games in a row, like it doesn't matter, just like keep doing the process like blindly, like just have faith in the process. Like if you win 20 games in a row, like still do the process, it doesn't matter. And I think that um that takes a lot of bullshit out of the equation, because um whether you win or lose, whether you're like things are working or not working, you still have something consistently that you're doing that will lead you to improvement. Like you can't really sabotage yourself. You can't really like, it's really hard to do that when you're always playing 3 games a day, and you're always focusing on the like on the same champion pool, and you're always um, doing all these things. So I think the first thing I would say is definitely focus on process and process alone. That's like that will take you very far. um, but other advice I would give is, when you review, uh, one thing that really helps me when reviewing is looking for like lack of understanding. So whenever I play games, there's always these moments where I feel like I don't know what to do here. Um, I don't know what the best decision is. Like should I go to dragon or should I go to baron? Should I push mid or should I reset? Should I clear these 2 camps or should I not? Like, there's always these questions that come up in your mind of like, I don't know what to do. And if you can remember those, so like after the game, you remember like these are the moments where I didn't know what to do, and you can bring those to like a review session, or you can work those out yourself. I think those are really valuable, because those moments where like you don't know what you should be doing are the moments where there's like you can have improvement. You can have improvement in the future. So that's something that definitely helped me as well. I think those two things are probably the biggest things, like figuring out what your gaps in knowledge are, and then sticking to a process.
What about for you, Eashan? Next steps for you? What are you working on right now? How are we going to get to Challenger? What's some sort of things that you're thinking about over the next, like, do you have a sort of time frame you're thinking about getting Challenger, or I mean, I guess, are you happy with your progress this season?
I'm so happy. Like I have no time frame. Like I'm like literally I'm having so much fun with the game right
You
now.
just love the
Like
process, haven't love the game.
like I mean, I know it sounds like cheesy, like, oh, love the process, but like it's just fun to play. It's just fun to play the game at the end of the day, right?
Yeah.
Like I'm like styling on Masters players. Like that's so much fun, like
Mm.
um and like seeing like how much of a better player I've become. But I have no time frame. Like I'm aiming for Challenger. I'm gonna get there eventually. I don't know how long it's gonna take me, but I'm just gonna keep playing and then keep trying to go for it. In terms of actual goals, like I think it's funny. We've talked about how I haven't been focusing on mechanics this whole time, but I think right now, like one of the biggest things I'm focusing on is skirmishes. Like a lot of my recent games that I've lost is because, um, I've messed up like a skirmish, or I've approached a fight in the wrong direction, and so that's something I'm really trying to work on right now. It's like, if there's a skirmish happening, or if there's like um, a team fight, or like a standoff, a dragon or baron or whatever. What's the right angle for me to approach? Like, should I approach with my team? Should I come from behind? Should I come from like this side, that side? Like, how should I approach the fight? Who should I be charming? When should I use my ult? When should I leave stealth? Those kinds of questions are like the things that I'm trying to work on right now, because I think I really need to improve my skirmishing. But yeah.
All right. Any final comments? Shout out to Ishan.
Um, no final comments. Shout out to Nathan Mott. Like I mean I think Nathan's done a fantastic job. Like like the amount, like how crazy is it that you took like a HARDSTUCK, like 7 season HARDSTUCK gold player, and you turned them into a master player? Like, how insane is that?
Well,
For
again, I don't think it was just me, right? I was maybe like a part of it, but as I said, that's why I asked a lot of the questions around,
Yeah.
how did you use SoloQ with other resources and stuff, and like at the end of the day, I can't get everyone to follow a process as consistently as you have as well. So that's very difficult for me as well. And people get bored and people, give up and all that sort of stuff. I mean, the crazy thing about you that I've noticed is just your resilience, and just like you're just at it, you're just chipping away. It's like Eashan's stuck at D4. Guess what? He's still playing Eve. He's still, D3. Okay, he's still at it. It's like, what's going on?
There's
So
no surprises. Like that's that's what it is. Yeah.
that's definitely, I think, again, like, from what's differentiated you, as you said, talking about what we could sum up is like, I just play 3 games a day for a year. Yeah. And
Yes.
just like, and playing with high intensity as well. And like, I mean, again, I think that you hit on all the things we talk about. Me and Curse and the Broken Up Concept podcast, and what all my
Mhm.
content's about. So yeah, I mean, it's been absolutely awesome to see your climb, Eashan, and I'm super excited. Like, now we're in, next season. We're going to be already, playing with high elo players when the season starts again. It's like, what can we achieve? So, and I think the key thing is, it sounds like you have so much fun playing the game, Eashan, as well. Like, a lot of people just have a miserable experience with ranked. Like, why don't you have a miserable experience? Like, why do you not view it that way? Like, what's the difference there, you think?
I think again it like comes down to like um, just like looking at the bigger picture. Um, like for me, like I see the game like, I mean, obviously, like, and like I say this, like I'm not trying to say like I'm some sort of saint who like
Some
like
monk.
some monk. Like obviously, like I get super frustrated. Like if I lose 3 games a game, like 3 games a day, like I'll get super frustrated about it. Like I'll rant about it in like Saltu, I'll rant about it to like Bryson or Calvin or whatever. Like I definitely get frustrated. Or like when I win a ton of games, I'll definitely get like really hype and like like want to post like all my like like, oh, I just won 5 games in a row in Saltu. But I think like what I truly find fun about the game is like the improvement aspect of it. Like when like like for example, like if I'm really bad at jungle tracking, and after like 200 games, like I'm finally like I'm able to perfectly track the enemy jungler. I know exactly where he's going to be at any point in time. You know, like like, oh, like, uh, I ping bot, and then Lee Sin shows up bot like 10 seconds after. Like that's like insane for me. Like just knowing, like I know that he's gonna, like I knew that he was
I
gonna do
read
this.
you like a book, and you're like, I'm in your head, man. I know where you
And
are. Like you enjoy that. You love that.
yeah, it's just like so much fun. Like, I think I see like that bigger picture. It's like even if I'm losing games or winning games, I see myself improving over the long term, and I think that's just so much fun for me. And like I know that this process has been working, and I know it's going to continue to work. So like I know that like there's more stuff that I'm going to learn, and there's more stuff that I'm going to improve on going forward. And so I think that's what makes the game really fun for me. Again, like it's an improvement tool at the end of the day, and that's what I see it as.
All right, great. Well, that wraps us up. Eashan, if anyone want to add you, is your friends list open on League of Legends? If they want to, message you and talk to you about some things,
Or
maybe some people reach out, be like, Eashan, like I'm struggling, can you help me here? Is your friends list open? Like, how can people reach out to you if they want to reach
yeah,
out to
I mean
you?
just message me on Discord. I think like I mean we're all part of the same like Saltu community, right? So you can
Yep.
always message me on Discord or on League. Like you can friend me in League. I don't mind either way. I mean I've gotten a lot of help from people like Will, like Nathan, who are a lot higher elo than me, to get to where I am. So like I'm more than happy to kind of help out in return. I think that's the best way for the community to expand. So yeah, for sure.
Great. All right. Thanks, Eashan. Thanks everyone for watching. We'll see you next time. All right, so this is a sort of like little bonus clip to the interview Eashan and I did yesterday. So what Eashan did, he went away and then he sort of compiled your notes, and you sort of wanted to write a bit more detailed, more specific things that you were able, what you did in your climb from gold to master tier over the last year and a bit, the last 1 to 2 seasons. And I just
Right.
wanted to share this as like an extra thing because I thought this was just fantastic. You originally said you're like, oh, here we. I think you just wrote this. You were just like, you just write this. You're like, oh, hey Nathan, check this out. This is some extra thoughts. I'm like, dude, let's make a video on this. This is great.
Sure.
So all I wanted to do, Ishan, is just go through point by point here, because I think there's some great points in here, and again, a lot more specific stuff. So let's start off with the first one here. You said streaming games to other members, to friends and other members of SoloQ. How did this help you? You think improve? And this was the first thing you wrote. Was that just like the first thing in your mind, or do you think this is a huge aspect of it?
I think it's a huge aspect that I didn't mention. Not because I necessarily thought that this was important or that this is something that, um, that like was like uniquely helped me. I just thought it was something that I think a lot of people don't do, and so I thought it was something unique about how I approached climbing. Um, I once I got into platinum, I started streaming. I'd say 70 to 80% of my games, either to people in Sol 2 or to like other friends that I have, and just trying to like verbally explain what I was doing in the game. Um, and it feels weird because, especially at first, uh, it seems like it's hard to keep high intensity while you're trying to explain or like while you're playing a game, and you're talking over the game at the same time. That's why they say like streamers sometimes struggle to play with high intensity while they're on stream. But for some reason, at least for the process of improving, I found it a lot easier to kind of improve on learning objectives when I was explaining what I was thinking in the game while I was playing. So I don't know. I thought it was interesting to kind of mention that.
You talk about like, so let's get specific on exactly what you mean by streaming games. So you said you're not backseat gaming you. So does that mean that you're just saying your thought process and they're just watching and listening, and then they'll talk about it after the game, or you saying they're like in your ear saying do this, do this, do this?
No, so they won't backseat me. So, yeah, and I'm not a big fan of backseating, but I just, I'll play my game. Like they can talk or respond to what I'm saying, but they'll never like make decisions for me or tell me what to do, because I think that makes things um, really confusing in game. So it's mostly just me talking for the most part.
So what sort of things would it be saying if they were to talk to you? What would it be? What would that look like? So you're sitting there playing, you're like walking into a fight. What are they saying?
Um, they would be responding to me, or if I
You would
say
ask questions. So you would like ask a question or something.
yeah, or else I'll say, like, I'm going to go to this fight because, we have a numbers advantage, X, Y, and Z. And they'll be like, oh, like, why aren't you catching ball wave, for example? And I'll be like, oh, this is the reason why, or something like that. Like, maybe that's something they would say,
Yeah.
if at all. But I think it's just that, like, it's like I'm having a conversation, you know, like I'm trying to work things out in my head, and then you know maybe like other SoloQ members or other friends, you know, they'll be um, kind of trying to challenge me a little bit and make sure that I'm like thinking of all the different opportunities or different options while in a game. I think it keeps me high intensity. I think that's the most.
So it helps you keep. And would you say that it prevents autopilot because you're always like pressured to talk because people are watching you? So you're like,
Yeah,
you're sort of like making like a commentary video in a way. So it's like I can't just stop, just autopilot here because people are watching, right? Is that sort
yeah,
of
yeah.
the frame of mind?
I mean, you don't want to show people bad League of Legends, right? If people are watching you,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
want to show them something that like is pretty decent. And so I don't know. I don't know if this necessarily works for everyone either. I think it's just something that worked for me.
This is work for you. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, next one here is having players who are motivated to climb and improve, do you think helped tremendously? And you talk about people similar rank to you
Yep.
and sort of being on that journey. So you talk about Michael and Lisa here, who they were both gold when you joined SoloQ in August. And then you went to John and Ryan, who are obviously platinum. And then Calvin and Bryson, who are diamond now. And you sort of like part of that journey together. Like, how did you sort of, you said here you made friends with them, shared struggles, and worked together to improve. You thought that was important.
Yeah. So one thing I noticed that I did is like I would always have a lot of peers that were in the same elo brackets as me. Um, and you know, not to say like I think a lot of most of these people have climbed out of the brackets that they are in right now, or left the Sol too. But at the time, I just thought like I was naturally like kind of pulled towards people who are the same rank as me. And I think um, there's something about you know like I would review I've reviewed a ton of games with Calvin and Bryson while I was in Diamond, and so you know they understand what it means to be a Diamond player. They understand um, you know the different struggles that are there, like you know Diamond 4, Diamond 3, Diamond 2, Diamond 1. Sometimes they've even played with like the same players, and so um, they know things that I guess even you as a coach wouldn't know about the
Because I'm not
experience.
experienced in exactly the same way as you're experiencing the struggles of Diamond.
Exactly, exactly. And then similarly for platinum and gold. And I think, you know, um, not only that, like on one end, it's about like, you know, having people who are experienced, but on the other end, it's also about having a little bit of like a kind of competitive drive. Like Bryson and I would always kind of race each other to see, you know, like who could get to like Diamond 1 or who could get to Masters first. And similarly in platinum and similarly in gold. So I think there's something, you know, there's like a little bit of a competitive nature to it that makes it, gives you a little bit of an extra push that I think is really important.
All right, so this you went into your entire. You literally typed out your entire schedule. So this is your weekday schedule, is it? Because you obviously you talked about the job. You work 9 till 5,
That's right.
and this is what your schedule will look like.
Yeah. So, just a point. So, for people who are in the BBC Book Club, one of the books that we read, I think it was like John Wooden on leadership, and so it's a really interesting section that he actually has in there, where he shares some of the schedules that he has for the basketball players that he coaches. And so, if you look at that schedule, it's really interesting because he has like minute by minute. Descriptions of the time that he's using for basketball. Like it'll be like, you know, 10 a.m. to 10:04 a.m. is like stretching, and then 10:04 to 10:06 a.m. is like, you know, like roll call or something. Like every minute, it's like not
Is
wasted.
accounted for. Yeah, he would have his programs and like there's no like standing around not knowing what to
There's
do. It's just
nothing.
like
Yeah,
the level of detail he went was. I mean, it's obviously inspired you a lot. It inspired me a lot as well. It's like this is like the level you can actually take a schedule. You know, because people just like block out. It's like you know 12 to 1 p.m. here is like lunch. You know, and then so I mean, obviously these are like general things. You
these
know,
are very
obviously these are.
general. Yeah,
Yeah,
there's
and then when you got into the league, it's like you got really specific. Yeah, this is like specific league stuff
yeah, and like I don't follow these times to the letter at
to
all.
the T. Yeah.
This is something that I just kind of started, and it's like just a process that I go through, and it almost becomes like a ritual in a sense. Like you know, like once I start my block, I always you know I check my chair, my desk, my monitor, I make sure all my peripherals are working. Um, you know, after I do that, then I'm practicing my full clears just to make sure that you know all my settings are right, nothing changed. I know Riot Games has a tendency to just randomly change your settings on certain patches, and so you know, practicing the full clears just to get a feel of my mouse and a feel of my keyboard, and then going into the different games and having like a few questions for myself to look at so that I'm just attuned to the game. You know, am I looking at the lane matchups? Am I looking at the jungle matchup? Am I coming up with a game plan before the game starts? I think all of these things. You know, I've have it written down, and I mean, right now it's kind of memory at this point because I've just done it so many times. But I think I first wrote this down back in March or April when I hit Diamond 4 and really started reading the John Wooden book, and I think um, I think it helped me a lot.
So a couple of points I want to go over, expand on here. I really like this. Having the water nearby, I think, is just exceptional. I mean, I drink a lot of water personally. Like, I always like my water bottle right here, and it's like a pretty decent sized one, so I don't have to go and refill it up all the time, right? So this will like last me like a block. Sometimes it doesn't. If let's say if I die more often, then I'll be drinking maybe a little bit more. So if I got a lot of deaths, this probably doesn't last the entire block. But yeah, the posture is a big one. The peripherals, the placement, everything. Like you want to make sure everything's nice, Like and
Yeah,
Dopa, the interesting thing. Have you heard about the Dopa? What he does,
like
like
it
he
has to be like
literally
6 inches
has like the
away.
monitor like perfect. Like he goes
Yeah,
to the
yeah,
next
yeah.
step. It's like it has to be a perfect distance away from the monitor and stuff. And getting that like at the end of the day, humans are very good in terms of being comfortable habitually in
Hmm.
an environment, And if you have the same consistency, it's like, well, if you're in the same position all the time, if you start like going down and stuff like that, like you're just not playing. You're not going to be playing the same way as when you're playing at your best, right?
Yeah, I mean, my settings are not necessarily like the most healthy or the most optimal. It's just what I'm used to. Like
You're
my
used
chair's
to,
always the
yeah.
same height. I always have my mouse pad placed in the same place on my desk. Like it's just like, I mean, it's not like exact. It's not like 6 inches like Dopa, but it's like it's comfortable, and it's what I'm used to. So yeah, I totally agree.
Practicing full clears. This is an interesting one. This is what Schönfire would do back in my Direwolves days before before grand finals, big matches, but I think just regular weekday matches as well. He'd always just go practice his clear
Hmm.
on champs, even though, he'd have it down pretty good, just to get his hands warm and sort of just have that feeling, that mindset of like, this visualizing. It's like, okay, this is the clear. What do I do after this clear?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I
So I
mean,
thought that was a really good one.
it's the first 3 minutes of the game, right? Like you're literally just playing the first 3 minutes of the game that you're about to go into, except you're doing it like in practice. So then, when you go into your game, you've already done this like 2 or 3 times before. So it's like, I don't know, it just helps a lot.
So then you go into the game. Obviously, these things help you have full focus intensity. So you come up with a game plan in champ select. Note down on paper. What does this mean? You would write it
I,
down on
I
piece of
used to
paper.
do that back when I used to take notes on everything. I don't really do
Yeah.
that anymore, but I used to kind of just write down like a quick note, like game one, this is my game plan for the game. And then I'd kind of refer to it while I'm playing the game, uh, what I kind of wrote down. I don't really do that anymore. Again, like I like to kind of just keep things in my head. I don't really like to
Yeah.
write things down, but yeah, that's basically what it is.
And these are some questions you would ask. So every game, what each matchup and how do you expect it to play out? Um, if you don't know a matchup, mark it on page to review after. And which lanes are going to likely get priority, which lanes you need help early. So the moment I see this, people might get really scared that they don't know the answer to these questions, and they're like, "Well, how am I? If I'm new to the game or I'm gold or whatever, how am I meant to know the
Yeah.
answers to these questions? How would you respond to that?"
I didn't know the answer to most of these questions when I started. A lot of it, like I think the most important point is the first one. If you don't know a matchup, mark it on the page or just remember to review it after. Because especially when I was starting, there's so many matchups. Like for example, the Camille versus Renekton matchup. The first time I saw that, I didn't really know how it played out. I looked at it after and I saw a lot of like high elo challenger VODs, and I realized that if you let Camille start that lane level one, she can actually get a slow push on levels 1 and 2 because she's actually stronger than Renekton, and she can like base with an item advantage or something like that. So if you can make your Camille start that lane without a leash, that's like a huge advantage for her, and she can even get priority in that lane early. Uh, things like if you have a range advantage in a lane, then you tend to have priority versus a melee champion. Or if you have a stronger champion, like if you have like a Draven into a Vayne, for example, like Draven will probably get priority because he's a stronger early game champion. I think like all of these things, you kind of have to, like if you don't know something in a game, if you don't know a matchup, just write it down and then go and try and figure it out after the game, because matchups tend to play the same way. Obviously solo queue is pretty chaotic, so things will change, but like no matter what elo you're playing into, like a Draven will always push into Vayne. Like that's just how the game works. It's like a Vayne doesn't have the tools to be able to counter a push against a Draven unless something horribly wrong goes on in the game. So I think those kinds of things definitely help.
Great. So these are the questions you asked. Okay, so you got some more questions here. Depending on where the enemy jungler starts, what are his options? So he's thinking about what the enemy jungler could do.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, were these? Did you add these questions as you climb through the ranks, or is this is sort of just what it is right now, and you sort of thought ones were more important to others?
Yeah, these are kind of things I added. I think a lot of these come. Kure is like a US jungler. He actually made a video where he wrote these questions down, and said these are the questions you should ask before the game. So I kind of just copied them from him, and those are the same questions I asked myself with like a few modifications. Um, but yeah, that's basically what these are.
So you'll play the game, then you'll reflect. Does that mean review? What does reflection mean?
It's not usually review. This is pretty bad, but I usually don't have enough time to do like a full proper review. So this is more like after the game, either while I'm in queue or in between games, maybe I go to use like the restroom or something. I'm usually just thinking about what happened in the game. Usually after I play a game, like I can pretty easily pinpoint like where things went wrong. Like like, oh, there's this bad skirmish, or there is this like I forgot to place my ward here, so I died to an invade. Like those are the kind of things I'm thinking about, so I just don't do the same thing in the next game. So these aren't really reviews. That's why I wrote reflection, because they're kind of just thinking about the game that just happened.
All right, so then you'll obviously play the game and then reflect, and then you mark some VODs to review with me, but also just for yourself, because you said earlier in yesterday's conversation about you will have VODs you might look back off during your lunch break and stuff like that. I think that's up here, right?
Yeah. So all my VODs. I mean, I use Loki for recording all my VODs for the most part. So they're all just saved by default on my computer. So I guess all my VODs are really marked for review. Like whenever I want to go review a VOD, I just can. I just pull it up on my computer and review it. Sometimes like I wake up in the morning and I just think like, oh shoot, like there's like this one skirmish that's just bothering me. So I have to like go
You have to
go
like
to my
look it back.
computer and like look at it and see like what
Yeah.
happened. But no, I'll like mark, like, because I have to upload them to YouTube and it takes like an hour or so to upload them to YouTube. So sometimes I'll have VODs that I'm like, let me just upload these to YouTube so I can show them to Nathan when the review comes along. That's what that means.
Okay. So yeah, this is obviously you said because you only have time for literally in your schedule with your work schedule 3 games, and then dinner, and then do some. This is usually when Saltu review session times are, and then you obviously sleep for the next day.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say you got a very normal sleep schedule. This is not like a gamer sleep schedule. You're not playing the 4 a.m. hours of the night.
No, that was me in college, and then after I got to get my 7 or 8 hours nowadays. Maybe I'm a boomer. I don't know, but
There was a question in Saltu today. Someone asked about playing on weekends. So this is obviously your Monday to Friday
yeah,
schedule. What does your weekends would look like?
my weekend schedule is literally. I mean, the reason I didn't write it is like, it's practically the same, except because I don't work full time. I usually just do 2 of these blocks. So I'll wake up, I'll do all the kind of same stuff, and then maybe between like 10 to 12, I'm playing 1 3 block. Then I go get lunch, and then I play my second 3 block, like from 1 to 3 or something like that, and then I go on with the rest of my day. But that's really the only difference um, on weekends. And obviously, I find it a little bit harder to play 5 to 6 games a day. I find myself getting pretty tired around the 5th or 6th game. But I think that's like my absolute maximum. Like I can play 5 to 6 games. I mean, I could probably play more, but they wouldn't be very good games. Like 5 to 6 is like my maximum for sure.
All right, so you then going back into reflections, you reflect a bit more on what we talked about
Mm-hmm.
yesterday. What separates you from other players who are trying to climb? You did mention here about having like that gladiator mindset. Well, actually, sorry. First, here you talk about the schedule. So
Yeah.
you think schedule is just absolutely crucial. You think this is the most important one. So you said schedule is without doubt the most important. If you keep a regular schedule, you're already doing better than 99% of SoloQ players. That's
Yeah.
true. 99, like literally, probably 99.9%. I could add here, Eashan. You actually have a SoloQ schedule,
I,
right?
I have tons of friends who play like League and are trying to improve at ranked. Like I have gold friends, I have platinum friends, and like they always ask me like like, oh, like what should I do to like improve? And I always tell them like I always look at their OPGG. They're always playing like either 15 games a day, or they're playing like 3 games and then not playing for 2 weeks and playing another 3 games. And I always say the exact same thing. Like you literally just need to play like have a regular schedule, have a regular champion pool, and just be consistent. And like I don't know, people like it's really hard for people to do that for some reason.
Yeah, it is very difficult. People just get bored, and again, all the narratives around, the common one you hear is, I can't go to sleep unless I win at least one game. Like, how many times did you go 0-3, and then could you like not sleep that night, or like how did you,
Plenty. I've
how
gone
did you,
0-9, like 3 days in a row, just losing every game.
wow,
That definitely
yeah.
happened. I mean, I'm sure that's happened to everyone. Like that's.
Mm.
Um,
Well, no, it doesn't happen to them, Ishan, because they play they don't go to sleep until they win once. They always will go at least 1-8 or something, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it's frustrating for sure, but I don't know. I think once it becomes a habit, it feels weird to play more than 3 games in a day. Even if you've lost, you're like, like you can't play more. It just feels weird once it becomes a habit.
Because you've made it a habit. Yeah. So yeah, this is a really interesting one for people, thinking about that schedule and breaking, like, it's really difficult for people. We find, Curtis and I, when people write into the Broken by Concept podcast, people struggle to do the 3 block process. They really make it's hard. It's like, and then we just say, it's like, you just stop playing after the 3rd game. Like, how hard is it? But people struggle with it.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, play like normal games if you have to. I think like that's what like sometimes if I'm really tilted, like I'll play like an Earth game or something with my friends.
Got
But, like,
it.
it's just not ranked. Like play your 3 ranked games and then do something else. Doesn't matter what it is.
All right, so you talk about the high intensity mindset here. We got some names here. You talk about David Goggins, the gladiator mindset you talked about. So you said here you find many gold platinum players in Saltu have a good consistent schedule. Yeah, a lot of people in Saltu, they do follow the 3 block method. However, you said they feel like they're missing like a killer high intensity mindset. And you think that you had this and what sort of separated you a bit. So you have an example here saying, Evelyn is a champion who on the current patch can full clear by 316, so many players are okay with just 320 or even 325, and you just couldn't understand that. You were just like, I'm going to do 1,000 practice clears to get my clear perfect to the point. And then you said, does the extra 4 seconds matter that much in terms of winning games? Probably not, but it's about having that mindset to win, that you'll do everything in your power to win. So you're trying to like find every little advantage in your games. You think that's just a really powerful mindset that you had?
Yeah. I think I think it's like it's not like these things are necessarily important. And I know like we definitely had a conversation in Saltu General once about whether it's important to know how to full clear on your champion or not. And I think for actual gameplay, it's not that important. Like a few seconds doesn't matter that much in the grand scheme of things. But I think it's more like the mindset of the mindset of not accepting like being even slightly worse than perfect. Like a full clear is something that you can perfect by just practicing over and over again. And so not perfecting that, something that's so easy to perfect outside of the game by just practicing, I think is like, if you can't perfect that, then I find it's going to be very difficult for you to perfect like even more complex parts of the game, like jungle tracking, like resetting at the right times, making sure that you don't die for unnecessary reasons. Like if you can't optimize your full clear, I feel like I don't see how you can do these other things as well. So I think this kind of mindset is really important, that you're going to do everything perfectly and you're going to find a way to do it perfectly.
You use the word unacceptable here. That's a powerful word.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. That's the way it leads
unacceptable. That's what you'd say to yourself. If I can't do this perfectly, unacceptable. So you're very hard on yourself.
Yeah, I think it's not something that I can really explain. It's just it just feels like it shouldn't. It needs to happen that way. Like for things to work out. Like you need to make sure that it's perfect before you move on to the next thing, or as perfect as is possible. Obviously, there will be mistakes, but I think people can definitely push themselves harder than they do right now in this all too.
And you talk here, this is a great point. You can't just lose focus and get caught out for no reason. And this can happen so quickly and easily in League. Like you could have high intensity for like a lot of the game, but it just takes that one moment and the game's over or the game's different.
Yeah, exactly. Like, and like you can play 95% of the game perfectly. And a lot of times, you see players, they'll play like 95, 96, 97% of the game, like really well. And then they got caught at Dragon while they have like their entire team's gold. The enemy team takes Baron and then the game's over. Like that's just that one moment. And then, you bring it to review and you're like, I played so perfectly, what went wrong? And it's like, it's just that's it, like one moment of lost intensity. And so I think, you need that mindset to climb, because even losing like 1 or 2 games in the grand scheme of things can really hurt your climb. Like that's like a net, like what, 1 game lost is like 40 LP of potential gains, like in the gutter. And so like, you can't accept that. You have to make sure that you're trying your best to win every game, I feel like.
So you talk about David Goggins. The book's called Can't Hurt Me. That's what we read in our book club. And you said that really helped you develop like this killer mindset.
That's right.
Any things you want to comment, or you just tell people just read the book?
Just read the book. I couldn't put it better than David Goggins does. It's more like you have to hear his words and hear the way that he says things more than like what he's actually saying.
People say they really like the audiobook. You should listen because he narrates it himself,
Oh,
and
he
he
narrates
really,
himself. I haven't
yeah.
listened to it. Yeah.
So you really get the David Goggins experience, you know, like he's a great, like, you know, motivational type speaker guy, but you know, I wouldn't even call him motivational. He's just a realist. Like it's just realistic. Like he's just done it. He's the epitome of having that killer, you know, the rabid dog sort of mindset to life. So yeah,
He's
definitely recommend that.
he's crazy. He's crazy for sure. Yeah, I respect that.
This is a really hot topic, the never giving up Eashan in games. People have questions like saying, you know, like, oh, like a game's lost, it's lost. You know, should I surrender some games? Like people will be like, oh, what if I play with high intensity and then I lose? I put so much energy and effort into that, but we lose anyway. Like, was it worth to put that energy effort into that? Because with that energy and effort's just a resource at the end of the day. What do you think about this never giving up, and how would you sort of say, what's this mean in terms of the FF vote?
I like it's gotten to the point where like my instant reaction is always to press no on the surrender vote. Like I won't even consider it. Like even to the point like my entire team's dead. They're killing our Nexus towers, and I'll say no. And like I get flamed in chat for this all the time. We're like, you know, why are you saying no on the surrender vote, even though like you know we're literally about to lose the game? And I think it's a mindset thing again. It's not like it's realistic. You know, like if the enemy is at my Nexus towers, the game is over. Like objectively, the game is over. There's really nothing you can do. But it's more about the mindset of like. Um, I'm always in the game. You know, I'm not waiting for the surrender vote. I'm not waiting for the game to be over. I'm always looking for a way to win. And a part of it is, you know, like my champion that I play, Evelyn, has a lot of tools that lets her get back into the game very easily, like off of one mistake. But um, I've found, and I'm totally convinced of this now because I've found so many games where on paper they look super unwinnable, and like someone makes a mistake on the enemy team, even in like Diamond 1 Masters. I think I had a game like that just today where like someone made some stupid mistake and we just won the game off of that. And so like I've seen so many examples of that I really just don't think it's ever worth surrendering. If people are making mistakes in like Master Tier, like I'm sure like every ELO bracket, there's definitely comeback potential. So I just hate the idea of surrendering or using the FF vote. I think it's completely unnecessary.
I'm surprised you didn't bold this one, Eashan. The Yoda quote here: "Even if we lose, I will make it as hard as possible for the enemy team to win."
Yeah, yeah.
So this is sort of like not saying I'm going to win the game. I'm just going to make it. You have to work for the win. So I'm going to lose anyway. But this again is just like just a mindset that you had, just that relentless sort of, and usually what happens when you have this mindset, I find, is that you win the game because you're making it so hard, and they're like, oh, they're just exhausted, and they do some random Baron and then they throw.
Yeah, I mean it's satisfying. Like I had a game like this against RTO where we ended up losing the game, but you know I sold my Medjais for Lich Bane. I was just sitting in bushes trying to find picks. Like I was one shotting Renekton over and over again. And like after you know I went to go watch his stream after, and like we did lose the game, but like when RTO won the game, like he was like exhilarated. He was like holy crap! Like we barely
That was a
like
hard game.
that was a hard game. Like that, like seeing that, like I felt very satisfied, even though we lost, because I just knew that like I made it a hard fought one for them, and like I also made it like you know, I didn't just fall over easily. So I just you know and like maybe we would have won that game too if like I played a little bit better. Who knows? So I think it's important to have that mindset.
All right, things that didn't work for you. Morning blocks.
I tried them. I know some people do them, but you know sometimes I wake up a little bit late and then I just I just don't play at all. So you know I'd rather make sure that I'm consistently playing the game than try and like cheese like a morning block. So they haven't worked for me at all.
So in your schedule, where would you have fit in the morning block? Are you talking about like you'd wake up at like 6 a.m. to play before your work schedule? This is on weekends.
This would be on weekdays. So I tried. I think Kevin Ballistic Pengu he did a few of these, and so he suggested that I try them. So it would be like wake up at 6 a.m. Try and play you know a 3 block 6 to 8, and then or 7 to 9 around then, and then you know go to work and then do anything else that you have to do after. But the other problem with that as well is that queue times tend to be really long in the morning. So it's really hard to get your 3 games in because you'll be waiting like 10, 15 minutes for a queue. So I just don't think it's worth it unless you have a lot of time in the morning.
Taking too many notes, keeping it simple. If the process got too complicated, I'll lose interest and stop following it. So
Yep.
you mentioned that you used to take a lot of notes and then you dropped that down. So you think that part of that as well is just losing interest and getting bored with that, or?
Yeah, I mean, it's like a process that's really heavyweight. So sometimes, if I don't have a lot of time, I won't fill out my entire spreadsheet, or I'll start missing days, and you'll have like, spreadsheets with like large chunks in the middle of just missed games. Uh, and like a process that's like that, it's not very helpful because I'm not really getting all the benefits of being able to see my progress day by day. Um, you know, I don't remember some games because I won't review it, because if I review it, then that means I'm gonna have to take all these notes, and I'm gonna have to like go through all these like learning objectives and stuff. And so I think when at that point you start dreading the process. And so um, I found a lot easier to just cut down on everything and just I just review them for like 5 or 6 minutes at a time and just look over like the key moments, and that's about it. That's like as simple as my review process gets now.
Last one was plain hungry, thirsty, tired. I found that after work. You always eat a snack and get a bottle of water. You said that you always play that three block no matter these things, or like, so you tried this and it didn't work, or like you've basically been able to work and then because of eating a snack and having a bottle of water, you can always just have intensity for that three block.
Yeah, so I used to play like I found that like I definitely I still play my three blocks, but um sometimes like like when I'm playing my games, I have like this, like I get really hungry in the middle of my game, and I feel like all I'm thinking about is like after this game I'm gonna go get some food, or after this game I'm gonna go get some water. And so that mindset is like really detrimental for like being able to stay focused in the game. So um nowadays, even if I'm not hungry or thirsty, I always make sure that I have like a snack and a bottle of water before I start, because if that hits while I'm playing, it's just it becomes so hard. So it's just like something I've started doing.
All right, so we did cover this in the interview yesterday, but you talk about, this was just sort of written down here, talking about specific things in each rank you focused on. You talked about perfecting the art of the first crab, gold 2 to platinum.
Yep.
You had just some basic questions here. Do I have priority in 2 lanes? 1 lane, am I stronger than the enemy jungler at this stage of the game? Will I have a level lead? Game knowledge wise, I got a general idea of how every jungler likes to clear, who full clears, and who likes the red blue gromp type
Mhm.
stuff. Tempo of camps. So this is sort of like talking about having high CS numbers.
I honestly think this is the most important thing in gold. Like,
Mm.
I was making a ton of mistakes for sure. I was like suiciding on dragons for no reason. This is back when I was playing a lot of Olaf, but uh, you know, I feel like a lot of players in gold, they tend to do a lot of things that are really unnecessary. Like they'll sit in lanes for long amounts of time. They'll just spam gank when there's no reason to gank. They'll have really shitty paths. And so a lot of times you can just beat these junglers by just full clearing on repeat really efficiently. And you have a 3 level lead. You have 8 CS per minute. Uh, Even if you play a fight badly, even if you like make some mistakes, you're so much stronger that you just have an inherent advantage. And so I think
Mm.
what helped me a lot is just making sure that I always had tempo for my camps and always was there in respawn when I was playing Olaf.
You said here, yeah, you played fights poorly, but you'll still win through sheer item and level leads.
Yeah, I mean, when you have like a gore drinker and they have like a longsword, you're you're gonna win no matter what. It doesn't matter, even if you miss an axe or something. Yeah,
Setting up an objective like Dragon or Baron,
yeah, just
same
simple
as setting up
questions.
Crab.
Just ask some simple questions. Like I at this stage, I didn't really have a very good understanding of the game. It was more like flow charts. Like if if this, then do this. If this, then do that. And that was like my understanding of the game, like a very basic, structured framework of how things should be.
Base it at the right times. You think this was important as well? Thinking about core items. I
Yep.
mean, I see in lots of gold reviews, people just sit on the map for long periods of time because they're
Mhm.
like, well, Nathan, all this chaos is happening all the time. How do you sort of adapt to that in terms of gold in inventory?
Yeah, I think one good thing is like this is one of the benefits of being a one trick as well. Like I think at this point I had like 200, 300 games of Olaf, so I knew exactly how much like my warrior enchantment would cost and how much the black cleaver would cost, and my other items. So I just knew like when I saw that number in my inventory, like 2150 or however much gold it was, like I just knew like okay, I need to reset as soon as I possibly can. So I think if you're playing a lot of different champions, sometimes you don't know what those gold values are, and so sometimes you don't realize, you don't get that indicator at the bottom that like, oh, I should be resetting to get my item. So I think that's one really important thing, knowing how much your items cost.
Like you didn't have to like look in the shop. You just knew your gold, knew saw your items in your inventory. And you just knew now's the time to reset.
Yeah, for the most part, you just kind of get a sense. You know, once you played like 200 games as a champion, you kind of just know like how much your items cost.
And then you talked about here just some basic stuff with the champion. This was again Olaf because you talked about you climb from gold 2 to platinum 4 with Olaf.
Mm-hmm.
Talking about when to press W, throw in axes, press them short and don't miss. So then you can obviously pick them up. So this is just champ mastery stuff. You just
Yep.
being like just doing the basics of the champion, and obviously you weren't doing a lot of these things, and that's probably why you were in gold at the time.
Yep, that's right. Just it's really simple stuff, you know, just like small tips you hear. Like you know, I think some of them were from your guide, some of them I just heard online. And like, you know, you should always throw your axes short. You should always wait to press your W, and those are things that you can just practice in game. You know, like just try and throw your axes shorter. Don't throw them longer. You know, it's like a mechanical thing, so it seems hard to improve, but I think it's like, you know, if you do it a lot, you kind of just get the hang of it. I don't know. I don't know a better way to put it, but yeah.
And again, here you talked about the importance of practicing the clear. Must do that.
Mm-hmm.
And then you played 200 games to get from. So you played 200 games to get from gold 2 to platinum 4. Is that right?
200 more games, yeah, around there.
200 more games when you were in gold 2.
When I was in gold 2, when I joined the
Yeah.
Saltu, yeah.
Yeah. All right, plat 4 to diamond 4. Tracking the enemy jungler and communication. You said I began to point out that teammates would die to jungle ganks in very predictable positions. This is your teammates. So is this where you started thinking about counter ganking these jungle ganks because you're tracking, able to track correctly?
More than even simpler than that, it was just pinging. Like if I knew the jungler was going to be on one side of the map, like I became really crazy about pinging. Where the jungler started, I just pinged like 500 times, like danger ping, and then when I got to like one side of the map, I knew the enemy jungler would be on the other side of the map, so I'd just be spam pinging my top laner, like danger, danger, danger. He's like on this side of the map, and so I didn't really think too much about counter ganking or fixing waves for my laners or anything like that. It was really just communicating where the enemy jungler was, and maybe taking opportunities to like counter gank or counter jungle. If I know that the enemy jungler is going to be on one side of the map for a really long amount of time, I can go take his camps on the other side. Like that was about the extent of how I used jungle tracking.
Talking about now, you watch people like Nidhogg, who has lots of content on his YouTube channel about like perfect, like probably like overemphasized jungle tracking.
Yeah, he's
But
insane.
you feel like this helped you a lot as well.
Yeah, like I got really obsessed at this time about just like I just thought it was so badass to be able to like count every CS because you're just in their head, you know, like you know exactly where they're going to be. You know, if you have 32 CS, you're going to go get your Gromp, you're going to take your Wolves, and then you're going to reset. Like I already know what you're going to do. And so, I mean, I never really got very good at it, to be honest. I couldn't do it very well, but
You started like dabbling in it, and then
yeah,
that sort of
exactly.
helped. And some games it would probably work, right? And then some games not so much. You would sort of stuff it up a bit.
Yeah, I mean, some games, you know, some like the jungler does one thing that's unpredictable, and then if you're not like really keeping track of it, you kind of just get thrown off. But I think what it does is when you go so heavily in one direction, like when you go so heavily on jungle tracking, like to such a degree that you're counting every camp, you start to get very good at like kind of just knowing where the enemy jungler is going to be generally, right? So when you stop doing like the CS counting, you still have that sense of, you know, like he's going to be on the top side or he's going to be on the bot side of the map. And it's not something I can explain very well now because I think it's become very like intuitive now. So it's just something that I know that he's on the top side or I know he's on the bot side or I know he's going to reset now. Things like that.
So you said, while it's not necessary to count every CS in a game, by doing this exercise every day, you slowly build the intuition where an enemy jungler is going to be. Nowadays, you don't count CS, but I just know where they're going to be, bot side or top side, and then you sort of have like a rough idea of they've probably done their camps, probably not.
That's right.
And you practice this a lot in Platinum 4, Platinum to
Yeah,
Diamond.
I think me and Ryan as well, like Red Butter.
Yep.
He was a big fan of this as well, just counting CS. So it was pretty fun to work on that with him.
Adapting to the chaos of SoloQ. So this is something, again, you worked on Platinum. You said that I learned that the most important thing was to survive without dying. And we talked about this a lot in our reviews, didn't we? It's like, Eashan, get invaded. I think every time I see like every time we have like an Eve player or like a Diana player or full clear jungler come, I always say, they start this like Nathan. I have all these mental blocks with invaders. I said you're gonna want to get invaded every game. You're gonna love it. You're gonna thrive in it. That's like the mindset that I sort of tried to talk to you about.
That's right. That's right.
And you had this thing in your mind where you said, whatever happens, I'm just not gonna die, and that helps you in
I'm just not gonna
platinum.
die. Yeah, because if you think about it, like the enemy jungler is going all the way across the map, like all the way across the map to take one of your camps and then going back to their own camps. So like in the time it takes them to go all the way to your side of the map to take one of your camps, they could have taken like 2, 3 of their own camps and like reset, gotten an item advantage. They could have gotten so much tempo, but they're spending all that time to take one of your camps. So like for them to really get a good advantage out of that, they have to kill you as well. So if you can just survive, maybe they take one of your camps, but you can take like 2 of your own camps. You can go back to your bot side and take your wolves and your gromp, or you can go to their bot side and take their raptors and krugs. I feel like you can always find a way to make it a favorable situation for yourself as long as you don't die. And so that's something that I've learned.
So you brought up tempo again. So this is what you said you worked on a lot in gold, but you continue to emphasize it. You talk about people like Malice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this was a little bit more specific to just not wasting time. Like,
Yeah, how is this different from your valuing tempo in gold versus platinum to diamond?
like tempo in gold was just making sure that you're on camps on respawn. It was a much more simpler idea. But like when I watched Malice, like he was always there for the fights. Like he was always there on time, and like it doesn't look like he's doing anything different, but he's always saving like a few seconds where it counts. Like when he kills the scuttle crab, he's not like aimlessly walking around in river. Like I see this a lot in reviews. Like they'll kill crab, they'll like walk around for like 3 or 4 seconds and then they'll reset because they're like trying to think about what to do next, right? But Malice, he'll kill the crab and like as the crab is burning, he's like recalling on the spot, like no time wasted. If the jungler ganks his top laner, like the default response is to start clicking towards your lane to try and like compensate, right? But he doesn't flinch, nothing. He just going
just instant recall and then just go to the other side of the map. Is that what he would do?
Right, instant recall, or like path to his raptors or something, or And so like what happens is by the time the jungler has finished making his play on the top side of the map, like Malice is already waiting bot with his ults, like waiting to kill their bot lane or something like that, and like just like saving those seconds is so important, I think. And it's not something that you'll see in a review either, right? Like when you do a review, you're usually reviewing like big decisions or big like game changing moments. You're not reviewing the fact that oh, I wasted 3 seconds here or I wasted 4 seconds here, but like those things matter and those things add up. And so I think that's one thing that I learned at this stage of my climb.
All right, next one here. I really like this point. So this is talking about after you did a review session with Will. Will is no invade plays on NA. He's like rank 20. He's like, he was like one of the first SoloQ members. Worked with him for, he sort of joined way earlier than obviously you did, Eashan. But he taught you here about wasn't thinking about what you needed to do next. Talked about this and how this really helped you climb through platinum.
Mm-hmm.
And why weren't you thinking about? I would say the question is, why were you not thinking about what you needed to do next?
I think a lot of the problem was I had very like structured game plans. Like, one of the game plans that you have on Evelyn is I have to clear all my camps, make a play, reset with an item, clear all my camps, make a play, reset with an item, right? So let's say I clear up to my raptors, but then there's a play that happens bot. So I come down there, I get 2 kills with my ultimate. I'm still in that mindset of like, I got to clear all my camps and then reset and then go back on the map, right? It's like almost like an autopilot thing because you've done it so many times. So my first response would be to just go straight to my krugs, clear my krugs, reset, and then go back on the map. But, after making the play, I didn't make a conscious effort to think about what I should be doing. I just made like the autopilot decision. And so
the thing you've done hundreds of times, or that one game you shouldn't have done that camp. You should have been somewhere else or something.
Exactly. And so I think the way to fix that is, every time you make a play or every time you clear one quadrant of your map, just think about, what should I be doing? Like, what are my options? Can I go top? Is Rift Herald spawning? Is Dragon spawning? Is my ultimate up? Am I sitting on enough gold for an item? Like, these are all questions you can kind of think of. And like usually you're doing something like if you made a play bot lane, right? Usually you're pushing in the wave to like help your laners get a reset. And like while you're pushing in the wave, that's your time to think about what you should do next. You shouldn't just be like, thinking about like, oh, that was like a really awesome play I made, or like, oh, like like I just got 2 kills. You should be thinking about like, what am I going to do next? And I think that's that's what Will kind of suggested I should do. Like that was his advice, not my own. And so that's what I started doing, and I think it helped me a lot um, at this stage.
So you said this is time back to where you think the streaming and giving verbal commentary was beneficial because you were able to say what you were doing next all the time.
Yep. Exactly.
All right, champion. So you said here if you learn objectives to look at lanes more, sometimes you just forget to do it. By giving running commentary, I literally couldn't mess this up. So after a play, I would have to tell the people watching what my plan next was. So you sort of like, again, you're getting held accountable in a way, aren't you? It's like, well, I'm commentating, like this is my learn objective. I've said, hey guys, this is my learn objective of this game. It's like, if I'm not saying it, then I'm going to get called out, right?
Kind of, yeah.
Going over champion mastery. We did talk a lot about champion mastery. You talked about, you found, so this is again all in platinum. So is this more like learning more advanced combos? Because you talked about in gold, it was more basic stuff with Olaf. Or did you just have to learn this on Eve? You sort of just had to skip because you obviously didn't play Eve in gold.
It was a little bit of just learning things from the beginning and maybe a little bit more advanced combos. Like, when Rocket Belt came out, it was knowing the combo on Evelyn is like Q Rocket Belt ER instead of Rocket Belt Q. I think is a mistake a lot of people make. It's just knowing, like, again, the fundamentals of my champion. I think was what this was.
You mentioned again the full clear. You love the full clear, Eashan. And then you talk about holding your ultimate versus using it.
That's right.
And we talked this a lot in our reviews as well, didn't we? And just wasting ult. Sometimes you just waste ult for no reason.
Yeah. And I thought this was a pretty good example because I know one of the things you mentioned yesterday was, like, how do you improve mechanics? Like, that's something that seems a little bit hard to improve. And I think this is one example where I was able to kind of consciously improve a mechanical skill, which I think
on a specific ability, right?
That's right. Like holding your ultimate versus using it. Like I think that's like a mechanical. I would say that's a mechanical thing. And a lot of it was like I mentioned, like limit testing, right? So instead of using my ultimate, I would try and it was almost like a game. I try and push, like how far can I go without using my ultimate? Like can I just keep using Qs and Es and run this guy down? And what I found is like a lot of the time I could do that. Like I didn't need to use my ultimate. And sometimes I would die, and then I would be able to kind of rebalance myself and understand, this is how far I can push Evelyn's damage without using R. And that I couldn't have done that if I didn't try so many times, if that makes sense.
Yep, that's great. Diamond Forward to D2, you said that you didn't really have much notice, and you never really talked about this in our conversation yesterday. You said it was sort of just a bit of a breeze because you had all these fundamentals that you were practicing in platinum.
Yeah, it was a lot of the same stuff. Like obviously, I mean, it wasn't that much of a breeze. There's definitely definitely took a while to get to Diamond 2.
Still refining those fundamentals, but it wasn't nothing new. You sort of like came up with
anything new. Yeah, that's right. That was mostly what it was.
D2 to Masters. So you felt like the biggest thing that you focused on here that it helped was reading waves, and you talked about again in our conversation yesterday about you found you just learned more about the game. This is where your game knowledge sort of journey began. Sort of thinking about matchups, reading wave, how does this interact? Do you want to talk about this a little bit more?
Yeah, that's right. So it's kind of expanding on like. Before my intuition was like anytime I knew where the jungler was, I would just ping it, right? And I would get frustrated because like I knew Hecarim was topside, I pinged it, but my Darius still died to the Hecarim gank. And that's when I started to learn, sometimes laners have to die. Sometimes the laners can't just leave when you tell them to, because what's important for a laner is like where their wave is and what their wave state is. And so a lot of that was just me looking at a lot of waves and trying to understand, is it going to, like, first of all, just looking at lanes to begin with. And then once you look at the lane, then you have to understand what the wave is doing. So is it slow pushing? Is it freezing? Is it crashing? Is it building to become like a really big wave that I can dive on or the enemy can dive on? And so once you kind of get a sense of being able to read the waves, it's kind of making decisions off of that. So it was a lot of just reading the waves and knowing what to do off the waves at this stage.
So you wrote here 2 practical exercises. This one from Zen Coaching, this one, I think you talked to me about this one as well, and you found this really helped you. Do you want to talk about this exercise here that helped you?
Yeah, I thought this was a great exercise. Both these exercises are from Zen Coaching, actually.
Got it.
And essentially what it is you just load up into a custom game with 9 bots. And it's the same exercise as if you were to go into practice tool and do your full clear. But the only exception is because you have bots and it's a custom game, you can actually use your F keys to kind of F key to the different lanes. And because they're like bots, there'll be like some RNG to like how they push the waves or how they'll kind of interact in the lane. So you can kind of like practice like in between
Predicting, it's like predicting what things would be doing, what will happen with the wave.
Yeah, exactly. Like if you see like there's more blue minions than red minions, you can say, okay, in like 30 seconds, the wave's going to be under the red side's tower. And so you can practice that kind of whole process from looking at the lanes to gathering the information quickly, because you can't just stare at the lane for like 30 seconds either, right? It's going to be
that's not practical. Yeah,
exactly. So I thought that was pretty useful. A pretty useful way to go about it.
Side lane awareness. Again, this is something we've talked about a lot recently in our review sessions, Eashan. I think that this is the biggest thing for understanding how to close out games, especially with Baron, and just not get into that ARAM situation. And this is in Diamond 2 Plus, like this is where people generally have an idea. Like people have won games through side lanes before at this point, many times. They just sometimes forget to do it, or people get baited into some random fight. How did side lanes help you get through to Master Tier through this bracket?
Yeah, I think and I don't have too much here because I think this is something that I'm actively trying to get better at as well. But it's just understanding that, especially on a champion like Evelynn, when everyone is grouped as 5 in the mid lane, there's nothing you can do. Like there's absolutely nothing your champion can do, right? So you have to force people to kind of split up and start, isolate themselves so you can get picks. And the only way that people will split up is if they have a reason to do so. And so you can kind of bait them, like a wave is a reason for a laner to go to the side. And if you give them that wave, you can use that as an opportunity to get a pick. And so, I think knowing that the side lanes exist give you a lot more options. If it's not a champion like Evelynn, maybe you're playing a champion like Camille, right? You can use the side lane as an avenue to kind of pull pressure towards you so your team can do other things on the other side of the map. So I think, it's not something that I've really figured out that well yet. It's something I'm still working on, but I think there's a lot of value in the side lane.
What do you mean here talking about your mindset shifted from reactive play to proactive play? Mm-hmm. And so does this mean that your play was very reactive in Diamond 2 and below, and that was you were able to succeed there? Why did you need to switch your field to the proactive? What does that mean?
Yeah, so reactive play, I would say, is stuff like when I see the jungler, like if I see the enemy jungler gank bot, or if I see the enemy jungler take dragon, then I'll make my play on the other side of the map, right? Then I'll gank the top laner because I know that the enemy jungler can't be there, or I'll go into the enemy jungler's top side and take his camps. But that can only take you so far because you can't, you can't be fast enough sometimes. Like if the enemy jungler takes dragon and you see that he takes dragon and then you try to make their play, maybe the enemy jungler's already, reset and pathing up top to counter your play. So a proactive mindset is more like, I know that the enemy jungler's bot. I know that my bot laner's wave is bad, so I know he's going to be there. I'm not going to wait until he actually shows up for me to make my play. I'm already going to be waiting in that bush. I'm already going to be waiting to counter gank. I'm already going to be picking my laners because I already know that he's going to be there. And I think that's the difference between proactive and reactive. Like you have those few extra seconds that allows you to react to a play much faster. I think that's a big difference in how my mindset shifted here.
All right, champion mastery specific here. So learning how to approach fights properly. So you started thinking more about fights. So I guess, so you stopped thinking about ability usage here and more about the fights holistically. Is that what you mean by this?
Yeah, like, specific ability usage becomes more muscle memory at this point. So it's more like, what's my role in a fight? Who should I be charming? Should I be peeling for my Twitch? Should I be going after their backline? Should I be coming from this angle or this angle? I think it's more like holistic ideas of what I should be doing.
Min-max in movement. You said you watched some LPR montages. This is sort of beautiful movement. I always talk about the closer you click to your character, the more control you have. So whenever I see a gold player or something, their clicks are very fat. It's like the character's here and they're clicking here, here, here. But these players, what they're doing is they're clicking here, 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 all right?
Yeah, exactly. And they're also like, they're tethering the enemy really well. if the enemy steps forward, they're stepping back, and then if the enemy steps back, they're stepping forward. They're always keeping like this certain amount of distance between them. And I think a lot of players, including myself, which is something I'm trying to work on, if the enemy steps forward, you'll take like 15 steps back, and that's like really inefficient. So I think it's something that they do that's really cool.
All right, so these invisible narratives, obviously we talked about a lot. You already talked about the scaling, the unwinnable losers queue. I'm not good enough to be X ranked. This is when you sort of had that phase when you hit to Diamond 4, you said.
That's right.
I need to find the most optimal builds runes. We talked about that. My laners are bad and not intin, won't listen to me. Talk to me about this one.
Yeah. So this is, I think we mentioned it briefly, but, it's this idea that everything that's going on in the game. So if your laner dies to a jungle gank, or if your laner doesn't listen to one of your calls, your first thought is like, oh my god, my laners are like inting. Like, this is what I need to do. This is how we win the game. But when you start to think about things from the perspective of the laners, then you understand, maybe they can't help you on the crab because they need to shove this wave in. Or maybe, they don't want to listen to your play because they don't think that they can win the fight because they don't have like key abilities. They don't have their ignite. They don't have their ultimate. And so, you can make plays and you can have ideas, but you also have to accept the fact that sometimes your laners, sometimes it's not good for your laners, and sometimes your laners won't listen to you, and you have to be able to adapt to that. I think it's something that I learned.
I need to be a generalist. You can climb however you want. It's your journey. You don't have to play every jungle under the sun. So this is an invisible narrative. You said you don't need. You shouldn't be a generalist. You should be like a master at something. Is this?
You don't need to be anything. Like one mindset I had is like, oh, I don't want to be just like an assassin player. I don't want to just play champions like Evelynn. Like, I want to learn like Lee Sin and Rek'Sai and Xin Zhao. And like, there's no like, no one says that you have to play these champions. You can climb however you want. Like, if I climb playing just Evelynn, like, that's like, if that's something that I find enjoyable, then that's fine. So I think I think you don't have to force yourself so much to like learn all these champions and learn how to play mid lane and learn how to play top lane and learn how to do this and that. So that was kind of a mentality for me, that like I've just kind of accepted that this is my champion, this is my identity as a player, and that's just how I'm going to climb.
OPGG stats. People love looking at that OPGGs, Eashan.
I do too. But
yeah, I think we all do, right? Especially when we're doing well. It's like, yeah, like I've had a really good day today.
Mm-hmm.
You said you broke down the OPGG. You didn't really emphasize it as much anymore. You felt like your job is to break the nexus, not get the most CS kills.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that's like on Evelynn, I think my champion, like, I tend to get like maybe 6-7 CS per minute max. And you see people like playing Karthus who get like 10-11 CS per minute. And then it just feels bad, right? Because like why does my CS per minute look so low? And like when you go on websites like Mobalytics, for example, they'll have like their little like GPI indicator, and they'll have all these fancy analytics, and they'll say oh, your farming score mid game is like really low compared to the average like diamond player or something like that. And so I realized that like these things don't really matter that much. Like, if I look in the game specifically, like maybe I didn't get CS because I saw these like really high impact plays that were more important, or maybe I died here because I stole the Baron, and like I got like I like made a good outcome for my team. Like, obviously these things can be like good. Like, obviously if you have 3 CS a minute in a game, that can maybe tell you something about something you're doing wrong. But I don't think that's necessarily the end all be all. Like, at the end of the day, the objective is to kill the Nexus. So if that means that you get less CS in a game, if that means that you die more than usual, like if that leads to ending the game, I think that's fine. So I think people overemphasize these things a little bit too much.
When did you figure this one out? Was this early in your journey, a bit later on? Was this just sort of reflections now? That's a narrative you have to break down?
Reflections now. Like, it's something I've started to realize over time. Especially, like, I remember in the Elise guide, like, I think it was Sybil said, like, he doesn't see things in CS. He sees things as, like, items in his inventory. And, like, CS, like, really doesn't matter. It's like an arbitrary stat, it can say things about your gameplay. It can say that maybe you're not getting as many waves or as many camps as you can, but at the end of the day, if you're making all the right decisions, then it doesn't matter. So it's something I kind of realized over time.
The narrative of I have to get this Baron or I lose the game, that dragon, what's going on here? What's this the narrative here that helped you break? Like conceding objectives, that's one of my favorite things in League of Legends, knowing when to concede an objective because
Yeah.
you lose games when you don't concede objectives. How did this help you through your climb?
I think it's something like that's easy to get, to concede like first dragon or concede second dragon or even concede crab, right? I think that's something that's a little bit easier to concede because it doesn't feel that bad to lose second dragon, right? But especially when I'm playing a champion like Evelyn, sometimes my team's just not strong enough on the third dragon, right? And it feels bad because if they get the third dragon, like, oh shit, like, they're threatening Soul, they're threatening Mountain Soul, they're threatening Infernal Soul. Like maybe we can lose the game off of this, right? And so people tend to feel pressured. I think this is something I remember I brought to you, like a kind of compilation of like just clip after clip of me inting for dragons. And I was like, like, what am I doing wrong here? And what I realized is like, I felt this pressure to contest like third dragon or even Soul. Like sometimes you can't contest Dragon Soul, right, as much as you want to. And so instead of feeling that pressure to try and contest objectives that you don't own, like think about other ways to get into the game. Like, I think that was a big thing for me. Just even if it's Dragon Soul, even if it's Baron, even if it's third dragon, like sometimes I just physically can't get the dragon. Like I physically can't get this objective. So what is something else I can do? I think that's what I realized here.
I mean, it's very logical when you think about it as well, but it's hard for people to wrap their head around. Like, yeah, it's like that mindset of like you're going to make the game as hard as possible to win. Like, you might still lose these games you're losing Soul, right? But you're not insta losing the game because if you go contest, you get wiped, you lose Soul, and then you lose Baron. But you might lose Soul, but then you can contest the Baron, or then I can get a pick, which then leads to another pick, and suddenly you're working your way back into the game. But once you go for that dragon, you're committed, and then it's a low percentage, you get wiped. Game's sort of over.
Yeah, exactly. And you're baiting your team too, right? Like maybe even if you think you individually can maybe steal the dragon, right? Like you don't know what your team's going to do. If you like make the call to go to dragon and like, half your team's going to jump into the Baron pit and take the fight, the other half is going to try and like play for like the steal or something like that. Like it always just ends up as a disaster in my opinion. Like you just have to, know when you should give things and when you shouldn't.
All right, viewing games, we talked about this a lot. I just want to go over the parts you bolded. What worked better for me is to actually abandon all these rigorous review process and take a more experimental feel-based approach. This is interesting, feel-based approach. Obviously a lot of the things you're here, like you're talking about the schedule being very, I guess, mathematical with your schedule, but now you're talking about being a bit more feel-based. What do you mean by this?
Yeah, so like, it's something that developed over time. But if you notice, like in the gold section, a lot of the things I was talking about was like I had like flow charts, right? So if my mid laner has priority and my top laner has priority, then I can get drag. Then I can get the first crab, right? That's like a kind of flow chart that I have. Like if these conditions are met, then I reach this conclusion. But what I realized is like, sometimes like even if you have priority in both your lanes, maybe going for the crab is not the right option. So I kind of took more of like a, these are the things, these are the tools I have available to me. And so like instead of using like a conclusion I came up with like many times, like many hours ago, or like in the reviews or whatever, I tried to kind of come up with a solution on the spot or like critical think my way through the solution. So instead of priority means I get crab, all priority means at the end of the day is like my laner can move first, right? And my laner can help me on whatever play that I want to make. And so if I have a laner like to use for my advantage, maybe I can use them to invade the enemy jungler. Maybe I can use them to fight the opposite crab. Instead of just having like a conclusion that I always use every game, just see what the truth is in the game and try and like critical think like on the spot. I think it's like a different mindset. It's kind of hard to explain, but if that makes sense.
I guess it sort of flows onto here saying you wanted to always look for stock standard solutions to every situation. I wanted to know the answer. So, you said the flow chart you sort of developed in your brain, which it seemed like that was successful for you in gold and platinum a bit. But you said that what is the thing to do if you get invaded? You're looking for all these stock standard and you realize that it's 100 times better to build the critical thinking skills to figure that out yourself every game. So, I mean, I guess this is sort of what you said, talking about that critical thinking skill. It's like, okay, well, I have priority, but it doesn't necessarily mean I have it. This is what's going to be able to do with this priority every single time. Like, I might have priority here, but I don't have priority bot. so I can't really invade as easily. But maybe another situation, I priority mid and bot, well, that equals a good invade. So is this what we sort of getting at here when you talk about the critical thinker and moving away from that flowchart mindset?
Yeah, exactly. Like trying to figure it out in game, like when you understand things better, right? Like when I understand what it means for me to have a Leona, right? Like I understand that if I have a Leona, it doesn't just mean that like, uh, my bot lane's going to play like super aggro all the time. It means that I have someone who can like, who provides CC and who can go in. And so, like that's something I can utilize, and come up with ways to utilize throughout the game. And so, it's like, I think one thing that a lot of people do is like, they always want to know like, what is the answer to every solution? Like they'll ask questions, like people ask questions in Saltu, like, what do I do if I get invaded? Or like, how do I contest dragon? And like, that's like a very hard question to answer.
It's general question. We talked about general questions yesterday. Yeah.
Exactly.
When you review, you're looking for specific situations.
Exactly. Like in this situation, how can I use what I've learned to kind of problem solve and find a solution, right? Instead of knowing the answer to contest a dragon, what are the things I know? Like I know we have flash, I know we have ultimates, I know we have a numbers advantage, I know we have priority bot, I know we have vision control. So holistically, I'm kind of able to determine like, yeah, I think we have a good chance of fighting this dragon. Instead of just, I can't like because of these, like I can't fight the dragon. It's more of like I assess the situation and I try and problem solve on the spot. I think it's like it's a different mindset, if that makes sense.
All right. Last point here: adapting to the chaos of SoloQ. You always used to fight the idea of chaos with SoloQ. You get frustrated, and the chaos does frustrate people. I see it all the time in people's gameplay. They'll do rash decisions because they're emotional about something.
That's right.
Talk to me about how you came to the terms of adapting the chaos with SoloQ. You said like once you accepted it, that's when you were like free in a way.
Yeah, I mean, I obviously still get tricked by the crazy things that happen in SoloQ all the time. Like sometimes people come up with like crazy invade strategies that I just never thought of before. But I think it's not something that shocks me anymore. It's not something that I'm like oh, like this game like all this crazy shit happened. Like this is
my
not
Vayne beat a Draven in lane early. Like let's say that for example we talked about earlier. So what happens if that happened in a game?
Yeah, it's like like before the mindset is like that's not supposed to happen. It's not my fault we lost. It's just like this is illegal. Like this shouldn't have happened. That's why we lost, right? But it's kind of like after fighting that like so many times and bringing so many reviews where I'm just like Nathan, this shouldn't have happened. This is illegal. Like I don't understand how this happened. And for example, if the enemy Vayne beat my Draven in lane, and I'm pathing bot because I think my Draven's gonna have priority. Without this mindset, I might have just like suicided for crap anyway because it's not supposed to happen, right? Draven's supposed to have priority, and so I think all that you have to do at this stage is just understand that like there's gonna be some things that happen in the game that are unexpected or that you don't predict are gonna happen. There's gonna be some chaos in every game, and so once you can just accept that, and for me, it just took a lot of time of just like fighting over and over again until I'm like, what happens if I just accept that there's going to be chaos in SoloQ? And like once I did that, then I started to realize even if my Draven loses to Vayne, I mean, it sucks, but that's what happens. Like there's something else I can do on the other side of the map. So
you just got to adapt to the game state.
You just got to accept that it is what it is. I think that's really all it is. Like it's as simple as that, I think, for this kind of stuff.
All right, well, that's the end of the Eashan notes. I'll cause this segment, I guess. The reflections from our talk yesterday. Again, I think I just wanted to do this video because I thought this was really helpful because you really obviously typed this out and really put some thought into it. And I thought this would be worth sharing with others. That's it, guys. We'll see you in my next video.